A group of adventurers takes a break from their journey. They use the cold night as a chance to drink something warm. At the same time, a strange movement stirs in the forest, but the group is unaware of it, except for one character. He seems to notice that something is wrong. His coffee trembles with the shake of the ground. Someone warns that an emoji is approaching the group. A massive serpent draws near. The order is all members of the extermination squad must prepare for battle. This is the first time a legendary ranked monster has appeared in the world. The monster uses a fear-inducing mental ability on the group to keep everyone united. The leader tells them to stay calm and hold their positions. A new message appears, saying the group has successfully resisted the fear. This is the extermination squad, composed of the best players, and the protagonist is among them. With the help of the buffers, our hero activates his abilities. But for some reason, he is only level 1. The hero is ready to fight. Without thinking twice, he leaps at the creature. The clash causes an explosion of energy. Choi Han-sung, 26 years old, is taking a break from work. Up until 3 years ago, he was just an ordinary student. His father developed an incurable illness called mana reflux syndrome. This happened after the interdimensional portal appeared. Ever since, humanity has faced many new challenges. The biggest of them is people awakening magical powers, although it may seem like a blessing for many, and also brings a curse. Through the portals came hordes of monsters that ravaged humanity, and incurable diseases also began to appear. But the players, by their powers awakened, were the ones who resolved these problems. Valuable items also began to drop from the defeated monsters. Thanks to this, these players gained great wealth. But for the protagonist, these portals were nothing but misfortune. The disease that struck his father came from an extremely rare monster, and the cost of treatment was extremely high. His mother then started working 2 jobs. His sister had to spend all her wedding savings and work a part-time job. It became impossible to avoid money problems. The protagonist believes that this kind of burden wouldn't exist if he had awakened his powers. Choi Han-sung could crush huge rocks with his hands and jump higher than a building. All he ever wanted was to become a player. Choi Han-sung comes home from work and collapses on his bed. They say players make so much money it's unimaginable, but no one knows how to awaken. It's like winning a lottery. Our hero believes it's impossible for him. Even so, he still wants to become one. But now being a player isn't about dreams. It's about necessity. If it were that easy, everyone would be transformed. Pushing those thoughts aside, he decides to take a shower. Suddenly, the environment changes, and a HUD screen appears in front of him. The message says he has awakened. Choi Kensum remembers hearing about someone who had a heart attack. Upon winning the lottery, our hero gives the status window command, hoping his stat points are good. But what he sees is strange. His points should all be at least 10. But that's not the case. These things depend on luck. But it seems like he's going to have a hard time ahead. After joy comes despair. Even at the lowest level, the total of all attributes should be at least 40. Choi Kansang adds up everything he has, and the total comes to 18 attribute points. The average among other players is 50. But for some reason, the protagonist's total is very low, except for the fact that every time he levels up to reach even a basic player's level, he'll have to run and grind many levels. Not to mention, he doesn't have any passive or active skills. Even low-level players would be valued. If they had good skills, guilds would fight over our hero. 99% of players start out able to choose the tank, warrior, or healer classes. But one Grial was different. Kim Hannah, since her youth, has been supported by high-level players. Thanks to her unique skills, she is the only buffer in Korea. On the other hand, many players can't get past the early levels. Still, even so, her hero has never heard of someone without any skill. In the past 19 years, Choi Kansan grows curious about what he sees, but he already assumes it won't be worth it. A long list opens before him. At the top is a rare elven sword. Looking closely, there are other weapons of the same rank. Our hero thinks it's amazing, but they seem to have a high value. He wonders if there's a way to convert that into regular currency. But apparently the boy has 2 billion points to spend. Maybe he can use that value in the game. Additionally, he finds legendary rank weapons. He didn't even know something like that existed. The public had only ever heard of heroic level at most. Choi Kun-sung selects 1 as an example. But the Demon King's staff has no information available. It also says that this weapon cannot be acquired by normal rank players. For some reason, the points just don't count for that category. Moreover, there's a lock item that is 1 level above heroic rank. To Yin-song scrolls to the bottom of the list and finds the elixir. They say this medicine can cure any disease. It seems this system wants the protagonist to do business. Normally, rich people are more interested in tanking skills, so the protagonist decides to check out those options. The protagonist finds an attribute-boosting potion. He becomes interested in these items. Maybe it's worth buying them to resell later. If playing well, our hero could become seriously overpowered. The item is a tiny red stone, but it's funny to think you're supposed to eat it. When he swallows the item, his muscles instantly contract, even though it only increases power by 1. The sensation was far more intense. After that, he buys a skill book. That reduces mana consumption by 10%. The problem now is figuring out where to store the book. Choi Han-sun decides to register it on the sales tab, but our hero discovers the system takes 20% of everything sold. Although he feels it's a ripoff, he knows there's no other way. It's time for him to begin his plan. After some time, his desk is filled with stat gems. Later, at the Hero Association, a receptionist asks how she can help. Our hero says he came to register because he awakened, but the woman finds it strange. She asks if the protagonist really managed to awaken. Choi Han-sung finds a common odd. The warning says, no one his age has ever awakened their power so late. Our hero doesn't understand what she's talking about. That's when he catches his reflection. His image, for some reason, is that of an old man. A security guard tries to help the old man lying on the floor. Choi Han-sung realizes that nothing in this world comes for free. He then opens his window. That's when he notices his points are dropping. Apparently, and those are his life expectancy points. Our hero is at home now, thinking about everything that happened. Doing some quick math, he realizes he only has about 1.5 years to live. So he needs to figure out how to earn more points. He has an idea to sell his belongings. Toy Concept chooses his Nintendo. First, he tests the console. The screen asks him to place the video game into the floating image. When he touches the console to it, it disappears into thin air. At that moment, the Nintendo appears for sale in the system. Apparently, it worked well. With those specs, he probably only get about $60 for it. Online, he decides to try his luck and sets a much higher price, hoping that the 40 games inside the console will be enough. The Nintendo is successfully registered. Now Choi Hyun-sung wonders if he should list more items for sale. A girl in a room full of treasures is frustrated because every day, the same things are registered in the shop. She thinks there should be more competition among people. At that moment, a new item appears in the store. Without thinking twice, she rushes to buy it. Choi Kon-san is finally returning to normal. Not only does this prove those points were tied to his life, it also means he can recover them whenever necessary. The current mystery is that the girl doesn't know what to do with these objects. She looks curiously at a watch, noticing the numbers change on their own. She doesn't understand why it's a rare item, but she's convinced. Another thing she sees is a screen asking for mobile data. Apparently, she's never used a cell phone either. Even after poking around, she can't connect to the internet. She has no idea how this device works. But after fiddling with it a bit more, she finds something interesting. A mirror magic in the video functions. She discovers something amusing and decides to press the button. What she sees surprises her. In the video, there's an effect that puts a hat on her head. She thinks for a moment about whether or not to do what she's considering. The girl takes a selfie, and apparently she likes it, because she goes back and takes more photos. The one who's not happy is the demon woman. She wanted to be able to buy all the items, but someone stole that chance from her. Now, the problem is figuring out what these things are for. She even uses magic to try and find a clue. But nothing happens, even after turning on the video game. She doesn't feel anything magical coming from it, but without realizing, the girl ends up playing for hours, until she sees the game over screen. Unfortunately, she's not even a little happy about that, and she explodes in rage for losing again. In the city, Choi Kan-sung stands in front of a car, but he can't list the vehicle for sale, because only items that belong to the player can be sold. He gets frustrated and ends up leaving. On the way, our heroes see some things lying on the ground. For some reason, the protagonist is able to list a broken fan for sale. Maybe only specific things work. And there's also a limit of 10 items that can be listed in the store. At a time, Choi Kan-sang opens the sales menu. But in the end, he has fewer points than when he started. Unfortunately, things are going badly, and no one is buying anything from him. A new notice arrives. The message says that a complaint was filed under Choi Kan-sung's name, reporting issues with the products he sold. And if it happens again, he will be banned. This is something the boy didn't expect. Choi Han-soo had no idea this kind of system existed. Now, his priority is to lower the prices of his products as quickly as possible. That's when notification comes in saying that all listed items have been sold. The panic about no one buying his stuff disappears instantly. Our hero then decides to raise the prices even more. Again, a complaint comes in. The message says that 70% of the items were considered defective, so his account may be suspended temporarily until it's resolved. Apparently, the messages are about the cell phone. That turned off for no reason. That person doesn't know. You'll have to plug the items in to recharge. Other messages keep coming in about cigarettes, beer, and other everyday things that the person doesn't understand how to use, and they're threatening the protagonist if he doesn't replace them. But Shorty Kan-sung doesn't even have time to respond before he receives more threatening messages. As a result, his store privileges are suspended for 3 days. But if the protagonist doesn't fix these complaints, he'll be inactive for 3 months. Our hero is thinking of first sending a new cell phone with a charger. He hadn't even considered that. His customers might not be from Earth, which is why they don't know how things work. Choi Han-sung even starts to consider the possibility that they are aliens. Maybe selling more electronic devices is a good idea. Our hero then visits an online store. The item prices are very cheap, but it looks like Choi Han-sung doesn't have enough money. Looking into his pocket, he only has a few coins. The boy even considers selling his skill book, since he's out of auctions. But that's when the protagonist has an idea. He taps on his phone, and time begins to pass. At the construction site, the workers can't believe what they're seeing. Choi Kim-san is carrying 3 bags of cement on his own without any difficulty. He even gets compliments for it. One of the workers asks where the protagonist used to work. Our hero replies awkwardly that he's just used to it. 3 days pass. Only 9 seconds remain before the suspension ends. Choi Han-sung can barely wait. The restriction is finally lifted. It's time to list new items for sale. But at that exact moment, a new complaint is registered. The boy is visibly nervous. Before he can read the complaint, another message appears. Of the 20 items sold, all receive complaints, which means he is once again suspended for another 3 days. In other words, someone filed a complaint for each of his products. One of the messages is from someone complaining about a video game that stopped working. And now the owner is so angry that they're willing to hunt down her hero. For messages from the same person start arriving, one after the other, demanding that he list new items for sale. But Choi Kim-san doesn't even have time to react. In order to fix his problem, once again he is suspended for 3 days. And if he doesn't resolve this quickly, the suspension will turn into 3 months. He's determined not to let that happen. At the construction site, people still can't believe a young man can be that strong. 3 days later, with payment in hand and a few boxes neatly packed, our hero is thinking that the person doing this to him is definitely an out-of-control buyer. He then plans to list a pair of batteries for sale. His account is finally unlocked. Quickly, he puts his item up for sale, and instantly it's sold. First comes a notice that 14 complaints have been resolved. Soon after 4 more disappear as well. His points quickly start to rise. Choi Hansung celebrates his success. Now that everything worked out, he's already thinking about listing more phones or consoles for sale. But before that, there's something else to do. Maybe it's time for him to register as a player. For a registration card to be issued, a person must complete a 3-week course at a training school. If they fail, they can try again. But if the same person fails again, they lose the right to register. Just because someone awakened doesn't mean they'll automatically become a dungeon hunting player. Troy Kansan passes the test without any problems, and he's applauded for getting through it easily. But one of the players thinks her hero shouldn't be allowed to graduate, since he doesn't even have a skill. The girl thinks it's cruel to say that, but the guy doesn't care at all. Choi Han-sam already knew things like this would happen. 3 weeks later, our hero is leaving the school. A group from his class invites the protagonist to go celebrate. With them, even one of the guys suggests they should go out drinking with everyone. But the protagonist says he needs to go home for personal reasons. The group seems a bit disappointed, but Choi Han-sun doesn't mind, since they'll probably never see each other again. The receptionist announces that his card has been issued. Our hero is very pleased with himself. He finally has his hero license. Now he can sell his skill book. And if he starts hunting with the money he earns, he'll soon be able to cure his father. At the equipment rental shop, Shui Han-sun makes a large purchase, which he pays for with his credit card. The clerk just warns that if the return period is exceeded, a penalty will be charged. And aside from that, he wishes our hero good luck. Unfortunately, everything in this world costs a lot. Renting, even basic equipment, turn out to be really expensive. And without it, the guild won't even let him mirror a dungeon. Let's not forget that. There's also an entry fee for each mission. In a plaza, some groups are announcing that they're looking for members to join their party. One of them promises to cover the dungeon fees and ensure the person's safety. The demand is very high for tanks and healers, which makes sense even if the dungeon level is low. A monster's still a monster. On his status window, it's clear our hero has greatly improved his attributes and his unique skill, his item buying and selling. With those stats, he could join any group. But that's not his goal. His plan is to hunt the rabbits alone and pretend that he earned the special ability he actually bought. Kori-kan's son heads to one of the portals. One of the staff members asks if our hero is really going in alone, and he confirms that he is. After that, his passage is approved. The protagonist knows the man is probably judging him for entering a dungeon without a group, since not even experienced players do that. The truth is, this isn't a game, and it's dangerous. People can lose their lives in battle. Even one of the guards questions how anyone has the nerve to do that. The man says, arrogant people need to learn things the hard way. Choi Hansen finally steps through the portal. Now he's officially inside a dungeon. The environment is a dark cave lit only by torches. Right at the beginning, our hero spots someone. A group is fighting a horned rabbit. The protagonist definitely didn't expect a creature of that size. To start off, Choi Hansen decides to just observe. The group leader calls for a provocation. The creature charges at a shield-bearing hero. For a moment, it looks like he can hold it off, but his defense goes flying. One of them calls for the whole group to attack, despite taking a 3-month course. All of these people were just regular folks. Not long ago, that's why. It's nearly impossible for someone like that to hunt a monster. After receiving a heal, the tank gets back up. The rabbit takes a direct hit to the face. At that moment, the group tries to take advantage of the opening. Kori-kan's son realizes he underestimated the dungeon just because it was low level. One of the warriors tries a lucky strike. The rabbit even tries to defend itself, but it's useless. Luckily, the sword hits its target. At last, the monster falls defeated. Tony Kinson notes that the fight took him 8 minutes, while other groups took at least 3. Meanwhile, the guards don't pay any attention to what's happening. Their badges show they're security officers. Apparently, they only care if someone's in a life-threatening situation. That means he doesn't have to worry about the guards. Choi Hun-sung activates stealth mode. His body nearly vanishes into the darkness. A group congratulates some other players. They are the assistant and healer from Guild Number 1 Sue. To encourage her, the healer tells her partner they'll definitely find what they're looking for. The assistant smiles, comforted by the support. The other assistants say that if they spot anything, they'll report it immediately. But the girl only thanks them out of politeness. They say her skills are more than enough to capture what she's looking for. But the assistant doesn't seem to fully agree. Both apologize at the same time. It seems the girls are worried because they've been hunting for 15 days already. What the assistant wants is to advance to the 4th class. But to do that, she has to find the Horned Rabbit's boss. But even though it's a weak monster, it's hiding extremely well. Still, the moment it appears, she promises to finish it. Instantly, the two activate their shadow cloaks and move deeper into the dungeon. Jason asks if her partner has heard the rumors. She says the leader of Team 3 and the support from Team 2 are at the supply warehouse. But before she can continue gossiping, Bach spots something in the darkness. Someone is walking among the shadows. Ani says she was going to pretend she saw nothing, but now she sees it too. Jijin wonders if the boy came alone or got separated from his group. The assistant takes a good look at the adventurer. She assumes it's not the second option because he doesn't have a single scratch. So the mystery remains, why is he alone? Unanimous is something even more surprising. The boy is wearing rental equipment. He's just a rookie wandering around alone. Both assume he's an idiot to hunt one of those alone. A person should be at least level 35. In a second, they swallow their words. With one blow, Choi Hun-san takes down the rabbit. Our hero is shaking. He didn't like the feeling that it's necessary for his family. But that wasn't the first one. He's hunted many already, but still hasn't gotten any items. The protagonist activates stealth mode again and strikes another rabbit from behind. But again, he seems to dislike the feeling. The girls are confused. Jasun sees that her partner is tense. Uni is deep in thought. She's remembering the rule of 20 levels. When someone hunts a monster close to their level, they can get a normal amount of experience and items. But if you hunt a creature 20 levels below, you gain nothing. In other words, the odds of not getting a single item are massive. That's why Uni believes this must be the boy's first time here. Joseon asks if her partner knows him. She doesn't know who the guy is either. Still at the moment, she just wants to watch him a little more. After all, she has nothing else to do. Choi Hun-sung activates sudden ambush, and it seems the boy got lucky. A gem finally drops. It's the 5th one he's managed to get, but the protagonist never imagined leveling up would be this hard. After defeating so many monsters, he expected to have leveled up by now. It would be easier if there was an experience bar, like in video games. Our hero hopes one more hour might be enough, but after 5 hours, he's still at the same level. Something is definitely wrong. Normally, a person takes at most 2 days to level up. Indeed, our hero realizes something isn't right. Jisoo comments that the atmosphere feels heavy. Choi Kun-sen is very disappointed. In the past 10 days, he earned over 100 million points. But after a full day of hunting, he only earned 100 points total, despite that he wants to stay optimistic. One of the rabbits tries to attack him from behind, but our hero finishes it with a single strike. Choi Hun-sung stands up ready for the next round. A group of rabbits comes toward him. Our hero prepares for the next attack. With one strike, he cuts down all the monsters at once. Our hero already seems tired. One of the rabbits jumps on him. With a simple move, he cuts the monster down. After that, the protagonist receives a new message. The protagonist earns the title of Rabbit Hunter for having defeated 100 of those monsters alone. Choi Kun-sen takes a break to analyze the change. The title he earned now appears in his status window. Because of it, he gains 2 unique attributes, an increase in vitality and a chance to rank up to rare. This title is common, and in theory, anyone can earn it, but people usually level up before it happens. So almost no one ever gets this title. It's not bad at all to be able to rank up to rare. Because of it, Oni is having a lot of fun. She's happy to have caught a big fish. The assistant saw with her own eyes that he struck a rabbit's throat with this single attack. It could have been luck, but she saw him do it several times. When he was surrounded, the boy managed to defeat the monsters with one blow. She really wants to recruit our hero. The protagonist wonders if he should go deeper into the dungeon. But Shorty Come Sun hears two people calling out to him. Our hero sees two players wearing custom outfits and high-grade armor. Jason says the hero doesn't need to be tense. They're security officers. He doesn't seem to believe it. After all, our hero didn't see any badges and hadn't sensed the presence either. Jason explains they were given a mission to protect the inside of the portal, and they were on their way out. And because both were using stealth skills, that's why he didn't sense them. But our hero hadn't even heard them breathe, let alone approach. The girl says she decided to come over because she thought his skills were too good to be wasted on hunting rabbits. But since he's level 1, the protagonist worries about being found out. Choi Hun-sung asks if he's required to show them anything. The assistant says no. She's just curious since they're from the Sewol Guild. The protagonist recognizes the name. They're one of the biggest groups in Korea. She says she'll help him get into the group, and he only needs to show his status window. Our hero is in a tough spot because he has a penalty preventing him from leveling up. Choi Hun-sung believes a player with stats like his will be considered suspicious, and no matter how much he hunts, his level doesn't go up. Our hero says he has no intention of joining a guild. Then he turns his back on her. Uni tries to stop him from leaving. The protagonist seems startled by her reaction. The girl curiously asks if he doesn't know who the Sewol Guild is. He says yes, he knows who they are. So then, she wants to know why he still refuses to join the group. The protagonist explains that he doesn't like being tied to anyone, and that he doesn't need a guild right now. She even asks if he's already with another team. But our hero keeps denying it, saying he prefers to be alone. Apparently the two girls are convinced by his answer. Choi Hun-sung says goodbye to them. Still, Uni gives him her card in case he changes his mind. He accepts it and decides to leave. But before that, she asks if they can leave the dungeon together. She says it would make things easier for everyone. But again, he refuses any contact with other players. Only finds the boy's behavior very rude. Her friend says that he may act like that for now, but one day he'll regret it. Before anything else happens, the girls decide to leave. Back on the surface, the protagonist comments that he needs to be more cautious. But then something catches his attention. They still haven't left the dungeon. Troy Hansen heads to a taxi stand. Inside the vehicle, the driver asks where he wants to go. Our hero simply asks him to drive. Troy Hansen checks the route on his phone. He asks the driver to take him to the Blood Fox dungeon. The taxi driver congratulates our hero, saying he transports so many players that he knows all the routes by heart. But our hero ends up ignoring everything the man says. All you can think about is that his status will likely remain the same in the new dungeon. In this new area, things are quite crowds of people looking for members for their parties. The atmosphere is the same here, just like last time. He heads to the gate. When it's time to be cleared, the attendant asks where the boys' party is. And Choi Hansen once again says he's alone. And that's how he enters the dungeon. Inside is a fang-toothed fox. A group of players surrounds a creature. Choi Hansen simply observes. He also notices something similar to the previous dungeon. The guards don't care at all about what's happening. Our hero takes advantage and activates his stealth. With that, he reaches the lower floor. The protagonist draws his sword ready to fight. He's confident that this time it will work out. Short comes some charges at the creature. Our hero sees that one of them gives 180 points. He swings his sword ready to end the fight quickly. With one move, the foxes are already lifeless. Our hero notices something. More foxes are approaching. Little by little, he's being surrounded. Our hero wonders if he'll have to take this fight seriously. 2 hours later, he realizes his count is at 299. With 13 foxes defeated, Choi Han-sung earns a new title. Our hero, on the other hand, was already expecting it. He asked to see his status window. In the end, his level remains the same, but his strength increased by 1. Apparently, each title gives something different. Our hero is already being surrounded by a large group of foxes. Tori Han-sun is ready to begin the second part of his experiment. 7 hours after the fight, our hero opens his window. He's earned a rare title and receives the name Blood Fox Predator. This time our hero is happy to have increased his rank. He discovers that above rare is the heroic rank. Sua Hansung stops a rest a bit, but he wants to come back the next day. He stores the gems in his bag before leaving. But on the way we find something a skill book. With the skill, the body hardens. But a warning says he already knows this skill, so the book can't be purchased. The protagonist is disappointed by this. He then decides to list it for sale at an absurd price, as usual, but he also ends up buying another book instead. Finally, our hero returns to the surface. The dungeon receptionist asks him to place any acquired items into the basket. Our hero places the skill book in his bag. Right after that, the man inspects him. But when he sees the number of magic stones, he's shocked, and he's even more impressed when he sees the rare skill book. Our hero asks if there's a problem at the base. The magic stones are scanned. The total value is equivalent to 39,000 REs, and once the books are sold, the company will contact him. Satisfied, the protagonist leaves. At this pace, he estimates he can earn at least 1,000,001 per day. It really is good to be a player. The next day, the protagonist takes a break to eat. He wonders if it would be better to rent a room near the dungeon, since his home is very far. What matters is that today he'll level up his title. Inside the cave, another fox meets the same unfortunate fate. Without difficulty, our hero takes down another creature. With that, he unlocks a heroic achievement for defeating 5,000 foxes alone. A new message says, our hero is the first person to earn a heroic rank. Title. The protagonist didn't expect to be the first to do it, although he feels like he cheated. In a way, it's also a good thing. In the status window, it shows that his points shoot up to a total of 100, and all attributes increase by at least 20. Troy Hansen also discovers something new. It's possible to rank up a title for legendary. Our hero wonders if it's worth trying, but not today. For now, he's tired. He promises to return tomorrow. 10 days later, our hero has rented a hotel and is eating a bit too. In the dungeon, he defeats another group of foxes. With that, a new achievement is unlocked. Finally, the legendary rank has been achieved. Troy Pennefather collapses from exhaustion. On the screen, another major leap. Every attribute increased by 40 points. Our hero can hold back his laughter. He's very pleased with himself just to check. But this is the maximum a title can go. Unfortunately, because the protagonist wanted even more, Corey Han-sun gets ready to leave without worrying much, since there are other places where he can do the same thing. Back in the rabbit dungeon, Corey Han-sun is fighting a group of monsters. One of them tries to attack him from behind, but our hero pushes it with the hilt of his sword, and that alone is enough to slam it into the wall. Apparently, the protagonist has reached a level where he can defeat these creatures with his bare hands. But for today, that's enough. At the Hotel Shiren, Kansum receives a message saying, the items he listed have been sold, but you must collect the payment in person. The protagonist decides to stop by the auction house. The receptionist asks our hero to check if all the documentation is correct before signing. That's when he has the shocking realization that the auction house charge a 42% fee on each item sold. Even our hero can't believe it, so he decides to stop selling his books. Through them, our hero knows he needs to hunt smart, since he already earned 10 million just for magic stones, and it wouldn't be impossible to raise that to 1 billion, as his online sales are going well. If he keeps up this pace, he'll be able to buy his elixir faster than expected. Walking down the street, Choi Hunsa notices his appearance. Since his father collapsed, he hasn't bought a single piece of clothing. The protagonist, like his family, simply couldn't afford it. But that's going to end today. At a factory, a group works on assembling parts. At 7 p.m., the shift ends. The leader thanks everyone for their hard work. Some of the workers say goodbye to a woman who leaves alone. Choi Hun-sun calls out to his mother. She's very happy to see her son. When he hugs her, our hero realizes how thin she is. His mother asks the reason for the visit. He says he just came to see her. Apparently, the woman is happy to hear that, like every mom. She asks if her boy has already had dinner, but he says no because he wants to eat with her. However, she says she can't, because she has to head to her second job. At a restaurant, she pulls some money from her pocket, puts it in his hand, and asks her son to buy himself something to eat. Troy Huenzong knows she hasn't eaten either, and that's why he wants her to come with him. But she says she only eats when she's working at the restaurant. Our hero even offers to help her, but of course his mother refuses. The protagonist decides to come clean. Finally, he tells her that he awakened. His mother seems really shocked. She even asks him to repeat what he just said. Toei Kim then shows her his hero license and says he's become a player. So now she can stop working at the restaurant. The first thing she says is that it's dangerous. Our hero says he's careful, but what matters is that she doesn't need to work there anymore. But she refuses, saying that being a player isn't a guarantee of income. She's heard that in the beginning. You spent more than you earn. Corey, Sam agrees with her, but she shows her how much he made. She opens the document and sees that her son earned 1 billion yen. With that money, he hopes she'll stop working, pay the hospital bills, and now they can live a little more comfortably. She starts crying immediately. Shiokin's son asks her to stop, since his parents took care of him all his life. Now it's their turn to rest. His mother can only say thank you. Later, she introduces her son to the staff at the restaurant, and he even helps wash the dishes to lend a hand, which helps everyone finish work earlier that night. At the end of the evening, they say goodbye and go home together. His sister welcomes their mother home, but it's Troy Kunson who responds happy to see her. The girl doesn't understand why he showed up out of nowhere, but the protagonist promises it's for a good reason. The three of them sit together on the living room floor. Our hero says he awakened, and on top of that, he made a good amount of money. His sister watches as the earnings grow day by day until it reaches 1 billion. She can hardly believe what she's seeing. Troy Hansen promises that from now on, they won't have to work so hard. His sister can't hold back her tears. She admits that things have been really tough lately. That day, Corey Kansung went to sleep with a smile on his face. The protagonist says he's heading out, and his mother asks what time they'll be back. He says they'll only come back when she quits her job. His mother worries about him, going out in those regular clothes. But our hero says he can pick up equipment near the dungeons. With that, he says goodbye and heads off to the next mission. The protagonist's mother tries to call her son, but the calls go straight to voicemail. She hopes he hasn't gotten hurt. At that moment, Corey Hansum appears running. The boy explains that there was heavy traffic, so he came on foot. His mother gives him a light smack on the head since she was worried. In the hospital room lies his father. Seeing him in that condition, Choi Kansan vows to heal him. 10 days later, the protagonist earned the title. He sees that it's still early, and he has a few hours left to hunt. The taxi drops him off at the next dungeon. But unlike the others, there's no one here. The sign says this is the Vampire Bat Dungeon, recommended for those between levels 10 and 15. Our hero heard their normal size and only move in flocks. Normally, hunting them without a full party would be difficult. Choi Kansan crosses the portal with stealth mode activated. The guards chatting nearby didn't even notice him passing. Our hero finds this situation strange, but he's ready to begin the hunt. With that, he activates a shield around himself to lure the bats into attacking. He pricks his own finger. The moment they catch the scent, the creatures charge. The protagonist feels as if the darkness itself is rushing toward him. A dark mass of shadow and wings moves as one and covers our hero inside the shield. He activates a fireball spell. The light reveals the bats, desperately trying to break through the barrier. But the weak flame also shows that our hero is struggling to use 2 skills at once. He focuses to intensify the flame. A dungeon with such tiny creatures is causing quite a bit of trouble in the end. That's the best he can do with his fire magic. In this situation, the fireball passes through the barrier, triggering an explosion in the cave. The impact is so strong that all the bats are weaved out at once. The barrier ends up cracked. Even the caster hadn't expected it to be like that. But before he can celebrate, a new wave of bats comes flying at him, Troy Hunsum is already preparing another fire spell. The bats charge at him full speed. He throws the fireball at them. Right after, he receives a notification for a new achievement. If all goes well, you might even earn the legendary one. Today, more important, is finding out how many magic stones our hero can collect. In the darkness, a protagonist sees something strange. Amidst the shadows, in the dark, lies a sword shaped like a bat. Even the protagonist didn't expect this. Apparently, the mana from all those bats form this weapon. Troy Hansung picks up the sword from the ground. He receives a message saying that the weapon has a passive ability that allows the user to regain health when the sword absorbs the enemy's energy. The protagonist ends up liking this effect quite a bit. But what's most important to him is wondering whether it's possible to obtain more than one of these blades. Our hero discovered that even if the monsters are weak, if a bunch of them dies at once, their mana can combine to create a rare item. So imagine if a bunch of rare monsters were defeated at once. A week later, our hero realizes it might not be that easy after all. Only the usual gems dropped on the ground. After the blade, the mana only fused one more time, and the item is in his black cloak with decent durability. But it's rare only in name. The protagonist decides to stop this hunt. It's better to go to another dungeon and collect other titles. A few days later, his mother asks if he's doing okay, since they're spending a lot of money to buy a house. But our hero promises not to overdo it. When the customers walk in, the attendant greets them. Choi Kinsung says they spoke on the phone. The attendant recalls that he's looking for a 1,000 square meter apartment. But his mother thinks that's excessive. Still, the protagonist says he wants to give each of them their own room. A week later, his sister finds the apartment huge. It's the first time she's seen the new house. The girl gets really excited. The protagonist promises that the next house will be even bigger, but for her it's already perfect. Their mother cooks the first meal in the new home. His sister says they need to bring welcome rice cakes to the neighbors, and his mother thinks it's a good idea. Troy Hansung sees this moment and finds it really nice, but he hopes his father can be there next time, and he'll make sure that happens. Now it's the Crimson Rat Dungeon for players level 610. The rats prepare to attack, but the protagonist jumps to dodge their strike. In mid-air, our hero finds the scene somewhat amusing. Then he pushes off the caged walls. These rats are faster than he expected, but with one move, two of them go down. In the end, the protagonist is on another level. He summons a fireball, ready to earn a few more titles once again. At the exit, his bag is full of diamonds. The person in charge of inspection can barely believe what they're seeing. Choi Kunsen just waves goodbye to the man, all smiles. But before he can leave, a voice calls his name. The woman says they've met before, but this time, she insists on properly introducing herself. Her name is Lee Shudy, and she's an assistant from Team 1 on the CU and Guild. She asks for a moment to talk. 1 week earlier, the manager is desperate to find out who's been giving him such a headache. Lee says she doesn't know anything either. The guild master reviewed Choi Hinsum's profile. He guesses the protagonist must already be getting rich from all the magic stones he's been selling. But the girl doesn't believe. That means the protagonist has a unique ability. Still, the guild master thinks the chances are high. That's why he wants this kid on his team. Of course, Lee agrees. Ho sent a negotiator's specialist to help, but she could try convincing the boy first, since she was the one who found him. Before leaving, he has one more question. The guild leader wants to know if Lee leaked this information to anyone else in the guild. The girl says no. She even made sure of a friend's stay quiet. With that, he trusts his assistant word. The protagonist starts wondering how he was found. That's when he remembers the contact card he received. Of course, that makes him irritated. Our hero immediately begins questioning the woman, wanting to know how she found him, or how they know his name. Since the boys suspect, they were also looking into his background. Taking that cue, the negotiations specialist introduces himself and asks if they can talk more calmly. But Troy Henson just dismisses him and walks away. The man seems out of options, so he asks if he can visit our hero at his home instead. Those words catch the protagonist off guard. The man says he waited outside out of respect. His name is Gajin's son, and he says he's the recruitment manager of the Sivon. Guild Choi Hunsung asks what they want. Go says it's obvious they want to recruit him. Our hero replies that he has absolutely no interest in joining a guild, and the recruiter knows that. So he apologizes if he's come off as pushy, but he explains that most guilds are actually far more persistent and much less polite when trying to recruit someone. Still, nothing he's saying seems to have any effect on our protagonist. On top of that, he talks too fast. So Choi Han-sun cuts him off. Our hero says he wants to know how much the signing bonus is and what the annual salary would be. Go says that depends on the person's level and attributes. At that point, our hero realizes they're starting to reveal their cards. But the recruiter promises that at the very least, he'll secure a signing bonus of 100 million and an annual salary of 10 million. The protagonist is surprised. Even if they're underestimating him, they're still offering a lot. Maybe they want our hero as their main player. It still doesn't make much sense, since the protagonist has never heard of a guild offering that much money to a rookie. Except, of course, for Country's one and only buff, Kim Hannah, who had already proven her worth to the world, which isn't the case for Choi Kan-sun. Our hero does have his unique buy and sell ability, but they definitely don't know that. When he got his player card, he made sure to only reveal his level. That's when the protagonist realizes what's really going on. Joe Hansen asks if all of this is because of the magic stones. The recruiter says he doesn't know what he's talking about. It was just for a second, but Lee reacted. You can tell the recruiter really has no idea what he's talking about. Now, Shiv, on the other hand, is doing a poor job of hiding it. But it's not like a major guild would be chasing after someone just for magic stones. They probably already suspect that. The protagonist has a unique ability. The recruiter wants to know what he's thinking. After all, he has nothing to lose. Choi Han-sung starts by saying that showing his status window offers him no advantage, then adds that Go hasn't made any real promises yet. The recruiter says he'll promise everything once he sees the hero's status. Choi Han-sun says he wants the 100 million bonus up front. Then he'll show them whatever they want and join the guild. Once again, the recruiter insists he needs to see the status window first. So with that, the protagonist ends the conversation. Choi Han-sun had already expected something like this to happen. Apparently, he's going to have to be more careful with the gems. He's drawn enough attention to be investigated. At that moment, the hero receives a call from an unknown number. And once again, the same recruiter he was just talking to. Corey Hansa immediately hangs up. The boy is running out of patience with them. Later, at home, a new message arrives. Again, it's Go, trying to talk to our hero about joining the guild. Out of patience, the protagonist picks up his phone and blocks the contact. Once more, Troy comes out hunting afterward. At the dungeon exit, our hero is being waited for, but the protagonist completely ignores him. In another dungeon, the creatures are blue lizards, but this group of monster is defeated easily. The protagonist is already quite tired, but the rate things are going. Soon he'll be able to buy the elixir. The next dungeon is home to the Red Mane Wolves, recommended for levels 15-20. This area, unlike the last one, is crowded, but not overly so. The giant wolves are under attack by a party of adventurers. A closer hero is sure. These creatures are stronger than the lizards. He fought, but even so they'll go down in a single hit. Our hero believes that with his current stats, he can defeat level 50 monsters. For today, he's aiming for the Wolf Hunter title. Deeper in the dungeon, a security badge is stained with blood. From his shadows, it's clear the man is being eaten alive. His level 71 partner can't believe what he's seeing. The creature he's facing is a two-headed dog. The player tries to help his friend, but in a second he loses his arm. The creature moves so fast, he didn't even see what happened. In a desperate move, he tries to escape. But with one attack, the player loses his life. The protagonist doesn't have to walk far to find people. Corey Jimson figures that since it's a popular dungeon, it's pretty crowded. Our hero finds that very concerning. These portals started appearing 10 years ago, and even after the discovery of a heroic dungeon, a new one always shows up, since new players awaken every year. A wolf leaps to attack, but Corey Jimson beheads it in midair. Before he even lands, a group is already waiting for him. Quickly, he prepares a fireball. Effortlessly, he blows them all up with one strike. Another group is already getting ready to attack. Our hero raises his shield, but instead, he punches the hound. Then, he chains into a combo with a strike from his blade. Right after, the hero prepares to launch a magic missile attack, which instantly blows up one of the wolves. The pack and the protagonist stare each other down, and the protagonist taunts them to come in him. Fearlessly, the wolves charge, and the protagonist leaps over them. In the end, Troy Kunson finishes the battle quickly and already earns his first title. Our hero finds his blade's ability very useful. It looks like this area has already been cleared, so Troy Kunson decides to move on. A small group is fighting some monsters. Troy Hansan just ignores them, but then he finds another group fighting as well. Since it's so crowded, our hero decides to head to another dungeon, but before that he hears a desperate scream. When the protagonist turns around, he sees two players dying at the same time. The protagonist locks eyes with the giant creature. One female player tries to run away, but she gets squashed like a fly. A piece of the girl flies through the air and lands at the protagonist's feet, saying that Choi Hun-san feels like throwing up. The three-headed dog has wiped out the entire player party facing that massive hound for the first time. Our hero is tense. With a swift movement, the dog tries to crush him, but the protagonist dodges easily. For the first time, Troy Kansung feels like his life is truly in danger. The protagonist hides behind a rock, but the panther attacks exactly where he's hiding. Schrödinger hadn't expected his stealth to fail. He even jumps to escape, but even though the attack only grazes him, his armor is already destroyed. The protagonist is left with only his shirt and cloak. The giant panther attacks again, and the hero jumps and slams his shield into the feline's nose, leaving the monster stunned, but doesn't turn out to be very effective. Choi Han-sun drops his bag on the ground, and he prepares his fire attack, launching 3 at once. This time a monster seems to feel it. Choi Han-sun grabs his things and tries to flee, since his magic didn't deal as much damage as he hoped. This monster is seriously tough, but this dungeon is meant for level 20 players. The protagonist fires off 2 more fireballs, and it's 2 heads at once. But if he keeps this up, his mana will run out quickly, even with the distraction. The protagonist takes a hit from behind. Luckily, Choi Kun-sung survived. His cloak is much more durable than the rented equipment. The dog tries to pummel him, but it's in vain. Our hero is afraid of running out of breath. At this pace quickly, he opens his purchase system and finds a gem that boosts dexterity. In the middle of the chase, he manages to eat the gem. 20 minutes later, he's consumed enough. Now his total stats reach 849. With that, he throws a fireball. Half of the dog's face is scorched by the blast. On the first strike, he dodges. For the second, the panther uses its paw to block. Even so, the monster is injured. At this pace, the protagonist is going to win the fight quickly. But the giant panther begins regenerating rapidly. Now it's clear that fireballs won't be enough. Maybe this won't be so easy after all. Our hero discovered that the monster is weak to fire, but he needs something stronger to handle this. As he runs, the giant hound chases him. Our hero finds a skill he might be able to buy. The problem is it's expensive, and he worries about his health. But right now, he needs to survive. Choi Han-sung turns ready to fight. He prepares to use his ability. The giant charges at him with full fury. Choi Han-sung prepares a fire spear, hoping to land the hit. This is the new flame ability. Luckily, the attack explodes right in the monster's face. Our hero cheers that it worked. One of the heads explodes. Now only 2 remain. But the second strike misses entirely. Corey Kansung doesn't lose focus. He challenges the beast to see who will survive this fight. The first spear misses the target, but the second hits dead on, blowing up one of the panther's heads. Protagonist celebrates again, but the joy doesn't last long. He opens his status window and sees that his mana is gone. His goal now is to survive until his energy is restored. Elsewhere, a girl screams in panic. All the players are evacuating the dungeon. Only the guards remain behind. What they're witnessing is a horrific scene, left by the monster. One of them says he found a footprint. Judging by the size, that Roop assumes the creature is not normal. The girl starts to wonder if it's really a good idea to go after this thing. One of the players doesn't like sitting around, waiting for help, especially since the guards outside aren't responding. That means they too might have been taken by this creature, even though they aren't very confident. The group leader still wants to investigate. One of them refuses to go any further. He doesn't want to die because of his job. But the leader says he's worried that other people might be in danger. Still, that player doesn't care about anyone else. And that sparks a heated argument. The fight escalates to the point where both of them have to be separated. One of the players tries to remind them that this isn't the time. In a battle, Shunyu Kenshin's mana isn't recovering fast enough, and the monster shows no signs of tiring. On top of that, the heads are regenerating again. The protagonist needs to end the fight before it fully recovers. Our hero prepares one more spear, but if he misses, it's over. The two stare at each other for a long time. Then Troy Hunson decides to drop his weapon. Driving this fight out any longer isn't good for him. The protagonist grips the fire spear tightly. It's time to settle a score. Our hero feels like he's about to do something crazy, so he pauses and takes a deep breath. And he's ready for anything. The hound tries to crush him, but doesn't even come close. Before it knows it, Choi Kensang is in the air near the beast's head, but the dog manages to dodge his attack, which causes some frustration in our hero. This time it's Cerberus who strikes, but our hero dodges just in time. The creature tries to take advantage and attack him mid-air, so the protagonist pushes off a rock, using the momentum to hurl himself forward. He slashes with his spear. At first it looks like he missed, but when he lands, our hero celebrates. Even a grazing hit left a scar on the monster's face. Shorty comes from charges easily at his enemy. The monster tries to attack, but it's effortlessly dodged. On top of that, the hero lands a hit on the creature, which he cries out in pain, seeking revenge. The dog tries to crush him again. Corey Han-sun uses his speed and climbs onto its back, and thrusts the spear into the back of its neck. Then he jumps as high as he can, and drives the fire spear downward. Not satisfied, the hero keeps pushing the weapon deeper, when there's nothing left above the neck. Our hero believes he's finally won the fight, with that Cerberus is dead, or not because a giant paw comes at him. Our hero raises his shield, but it's useless, and he's torn to pieces. The dog's face is already regenerating, and once again, the protagonist is cornered by the creature. No doubt about it, this is one stubborn beast. On top of that, his mana is nearly depleted. The protagonist gets ready for one final round. He attacks the half-horned face, just as another paw comes down toward his neck. But Choi Hyunso encounters right away. In the end, he throws his spear, blowing up the other neck. And finally, the giant monster collapses lifeless. Choi Kansung, with a burned hand and completely exhausted, he gazes at his fallen enemy. At that moment, a new notification pops up. The protagonist earns a rare achievement for defeating the monster, known as Grudun. Choi Kansung didn't know he was fighting an creature. Then another message appears. Our hero wasn't expecting this one. Our hero receives the title of Level Breaker for slaying a monster, 100 levels above his own. He's happy with the 2 new achievements, though it took a massive effort. Suddenly, the monster's body begins to transform into mana, becoming a skill book. The protagonist walks over and picks the item up from the ground. The rare and unique skill grants the ability not to die, as long as the head isn't destroyed, with all other wounds regenerating. As long as he protects his head, any attack can be healed. Our hero is now almost immortal. Even if the regeneration is slow, he can still evolve this ability. The protagonist has never seen a rare skill for sale that can evolve like this one. Tanks would absolutely go crazy over this book. Troy Khan's son gathers his things and gets ready to leave. He can't help but think that there's no other skill like this in the world. It's one of kind. A message asks. Choi Kunson accepts, and a blue light begins to glow. As soon as his passive ability activates, he starts to regenerate. But it seems this skill consumes vitality. Fortunately, our hero has plenty of that. Later, the protagonist checks the titles he earned. The first one boosts all attributes by 5. What excites him is that it's a common rank, which means our hero can improve that percentage. Now, with the other title, he gains 3 vitality. Shuei Khan's son considers Grijun to have been a good boy. Having wrapped everything up, he decides to head back. A team of players rushes in to hunt the monster. They are the Extermination Squad from the Player Association. One of the members announces that he's found players, a girl in group. Immediately, identifies herself as part of the association. The adventurers are completely confused. The squad leader Shinyana says she heard a rumor about a high-level monster. That's why she asks everyone to evacuate. One girl is frightened, but the leader confirms that it's all true. Shin asks if any of the team members have already detected the creature, but he says he can only sense the wolves. Suddenly something changes. He says a player has been found. Shin wants to know where and how many. The answer is that it's just one person. The protagonist is making his way back happy as can be, but he feels someone coming his way. He stops right where he is, worried about who these people might be. It's clear they are high level. Their gear is very shiny. The group's leader asks our hero if everything is all right. A bit suspicious, our hero says yes, he's fine. She notices the hero is pretty dirty, so she asks if he encountered the monster. Troy Han-san says he doesn't know what she means by that. The group leader responds that he saw the high-level monster. Our hero assumes the association already knows about the situation. Our hero decides to say yes. He did encounter the creature. Suddenly the girl gets closer than she should, excited and eager to know more. That's when she realizes her mistake. Shin quickly apologizes. Then she says she'll help him, and hands him a vial to treat his wounds. Koi Kunsen recognizes that it's a very rare item. Shin tells him to just spray it on his hand. And that's it. The protagonist doesn't really know how to react, so he decides to talk about the monster. The leader tells him to go on. Koi Kunsen says the creature was a giant black-furred, 3-headed jaguar. Shin says, a monster like that has never been seen before. Not even her companions know anything about it. The protagonist continues and says, the monster was the size of a house, and that it went in that direction. Shin then thanks him. Right after they disappear in the blink of an eye, even our hero's surprised by their speed. But he's glad he defeated the creature. Otherwise, by the time those players arrive, the monster would have claimed more lives. The reward is just a bonus. Even if that group is now going to be searching for nothing, the team reaches the end of the dungeon. One of the players wonders if the creature passed through the portal. The leader hopes not, because that would cause an even bigger problem. She knows the monster has already tasted blood, and it will return for more. This time, all she could do was file a report to the association. But something still bothers her. Only now does she stop to think about how that man escaped. For someone who lost his entire party, he didn't seem all that shaken. Shin decides to go back, just talk to him. The captain tells her men to wait. The mage wants to know what's bothering her. Shin says she's concerned about the player she met. Earlier, the tank is sure he's fine, but since he's alone, she wants to be sure. After some hesitation, he agrees. In the end, her team agrees to wait for her. With one step, she vanishes into the shadows. As she makes her way back up, she notices something strange. It catches her attention, but she continues on until she reaches the exit gate. Obviously, she doesn't find the boy, so she assumes he made it out safely. Back in his apartment, the new skill has proven to be quite effective, even though the regeneration is slow. Combined with healing magic, it's very useful. With nothing else to do, the protagonist drops onto the couch. He's completely exhausted. Soon his mother arrives. Right away, she notices that her son's face looks different. Troy Kanzo knows exactly why. He spent a lot of points buying the fire spear. But to deflect, he simply says he's been working a lot. Then he asks if there's anything to eat. But she gets angry because he didn't even have lunch. So his mother decides to make something for him. Choi Kansum is starting to have a bit of a problem on his hands. It'll be bad for him. If these situations start happening frequently, at that moment, his sister calls their mother, asking about the protagonist. And apparently, she's talking about the incident that happened in the dungeon, where many people lost their lives. Most likely the public figure out the victims' names by checking who hadn't left the dungeon yet. His mother then ends the call. From her expression, she's clearly not happy. She's already figured out that this is why he got home. Earlier, Shorty Khan's son tries to calm her down, saying he didn't see the monster. His mother begins by saying, she always knew this job was too dangerous, but our hero says he enjoys what he does. He says that besides being happy, hunting monsters is fun. The next day, the Red Wolf dungeon is temporarily closed. The place is quite crowded. During the investigation, they discover where the first victims were attacked and where they found the trail of the three-headed jaguar. But there are no clues as to where the creature went, says tracking specialist Kim Dong-seo. Shin says it doesn't make sense for the monster to still be in the dungeon, since they searched everywhere. Kim says he doesn't know what happened either, but he's trying to follow its tracks. The squad leader volunteers to go with him. The officer thanks her, saying he feels much safer with her by his side, but she just says she's doing her job, using his powers. Kim discovers that this area was also attacked by the monster. Then it went in another direction. But the investigator encounters something strange. The jaguar let a player escape. Kim runs watching the scene through his magic. He says a fight took place that way. He discovers it was just one player who fought the beast. Kim says you can still sense the residue of fire. Magic use. Also, the endurance of this player is very high, so he assumes the person might be a magic swordsman. And so they both arrive where the main battle happened. The investigator says the beast took a heavy blow at this location, opening a fatal wound on the creature. Shin doesn't understand how a monster that wiped out all the security officers could have been wounded. Kim originally believed the player was a swordsman, but now he's shifting to the possibility of a mage with very high dexterity and someone using some very powerful skills. They both head to the next site, the place where the battle was decided. That leaves the captain even more confused. Kim is once again puzzled by his earlier claim that the player was a mage, since what he's seeing now is a fierce, close-quarters battle, followed by powerful magic use. This player is a hybrid of swordsman and mage, since there's no body. The investigator assumes the creature turned into items, or magic crystals. Shin is extremely confused. Aside from magic swordsmen and mages being rare, they're also a rather mediocre class. But this person hunted a monster, far above the dungeon's level. All alone, Kim says he saw in the report that the highest level player to enter that cave was, at most, level 24. Also, this person wasn't one of the officers, since all of them were wiped out, and the ones outside didn't do anything. Due to ongoing conflict, there's no way a regular player could have done this. She thinks Kim speculates that maybe it was someone who hasn't renewed their player registration, since players are only required to do that once every 2 years. But that's not enough for her. At most date, a player would reach level 50. And besides that, no guild-backed player entered this dungeon either. Kim agrees, and it's a very bizarre situation, even if a very powerful player was in that cave. It makes no sense for them to be wandering around a beginner dungeon. Shin asks if there's any way to track this player. Cave is mainly specialized in tracking monsters. Still, he promises to try. The officer uses his special powers. He says that right after the battle ended, the player's tracks disappeared as well. In this terrain, it will be very hard for him to track the player using his magic. Shin asks how he managed to do it with a monster. The officer says it's because monsters leave clearer traces, like this giant footprint. So if a player isn't in battle or using magic, it's hard to see anything. Besides, this person didn't use any magic afterward. If the player had done that, Kim could have tracked them. Seeing what he's trying to do, Kim realizes he asked the impossible, so she apologizes. Kim is the one who apologizes, saying he still has a lot to learn. Shin says they can head back now, and the officer agrees. In the end, they close the investigation in the dungeon. In her report, Shadden states that they need to investigate every player who entered that dungeon. She presumes that the person who defeated the monster has strength above level 100, and if such a player exists, she believes they need to hire them, because they can't keep losing all their talent to the guilds. The player association is managed by the government, unlike the guilds, which are private organizations. In the beginning, the association had great influence. The number of players was vast and powerful, but as time went on, the association began to lose its strength, while the guilds started consolidating. One of the reasons for this was putting politicians who didn't understand the field in charge of the association. They began to prioritize patriotism and pay players less through exploitative contracts. On the other hand, guilds backed by outsourced media investment could afford to offer better and fairer payments. Association launched an internal investigation and fired politicians tied to corruption, but it was already too late. With the corrupt figures gone, their positions began to be filled by players. Under new leadership, they raised their contracts to compete with the guilds and began chasing after promising players. Thanks to that, the Players Association is distancing itself from its negative image and ushering in a new era. But compared to the guilds, they're still weak. Shim emphasizes that this rookie has the potential to be a top-tier player. They can't afford to miss this chance. Choi Kansan would like to finish the Red Wolf dungeon, since all the others have already been cleared. But it's not like there's one available for him to go to. In another city, the protagonist wonders how he will level up his new skill, since there's nothing about it on the internet. Maybe it's just about knowing how to use it. The problem is it's a passive skill, and he's not supposed to get hurt. At the Hotel Choi, Kansam tries to think of a way to hide the magic stones. You can't trust those guys. Standing at the dungeon entrance, the protagonist has to avoid the eyes of the association staff. The inspection is supposedly to prevent players from bringing dangerous items, like monster eggs or otherworldly plant seeds. But in truth, everyone knows the real reason is to prevent tax evasion by players. The protagonist is certain that the association and the guild must have some kind of cardel. Our hero needs to find a way. He remembers seeing something available for purchase. The skill being sold creates a space only his owner can access and manipulate. As always, it's very expensive, but it's definitely a skill he's going to need. When he clicks, the book instantly appears in his hand, and of course he agrees to learn the skill. Without a doubt, Choi Kin-sam is older now. But to test it, he activates the personal space skill. A portal opens in front of him, showing that it worked. Inside, it's much larger than he expected. Far bigger than the tiny studio apartment he once lived in. After that, he closes the portal and is ready to go out and hunt monsters. Choi Han's son heads to the portal, hoping everything goes smoothly. He hopes to be mistaken for just another night. Of course, upon closer inspection, there's always someone who doesn't forget. The staff member takes his badge and scans it through the machine. But just as he's about to be cleared, the man asks the protagonist to wait a minute. Soon after, the man confirms our hero's identity. With a swift move, he slices the wolves into pieces. Right after that, an update comes in. In the end, it went pretty smoothly. And all that earlier drama was just for a biometric check. That's why getting into the dungeon was also easy. Choi Kinsam opens his personal space and sucks the jewels inside, but he holds on to one, since he needs to take something out with him. Joy. Hansing feels a little nervous as his bag is inspected. In the end, the staff says everything is fine. Then he leaves like it was just another workday. Now the protagonist can be happy, because he won't draw attention anymore. 10 days later, Choi Hansing finally manages to hunt 10,000 red wolves. The protagonist decides to stop for the day and organize his items. He receives a skill book, but it's one he already has. He'll check the other one later. But now this is the one he wanted. A passive skill that boosts recovery quickly. He agrees to learn this new power. A new notification pops up. For some reason, the protagonist can't learn the new skill. Choi Khan's son is left not knowing what to do. He's never heard of anything like this. What actually happened? is that the Book of Immortality absorbs this skill and then enhances itself. Once again, our hero is left clueless. Looking at his skill status window, it seems like nothing changed. Apparently, the regenerative winds became part of the other skill, but what's unclear is how much it improved. The protagonist takes his dagger and cuts his own skin. In a short time, the wound closes, but apparently nothing changed. Maybe in order to evolve, his skill needs to absorb more books. The problem is that the cost of this one, for example, is 30 million, but its efficiency is very low. In the end, he leaves the dungeon and he walks away. While using his phone, an unknown number calls him. The protagonist decides to answer. The person on the other end already knows. They're speaking with Troy Khan's son. It's the leader of the second support team. Who's calling? Immediately, he gets nervous. The protagonist says he only wanted to receive this call, that his terms have been accepted. The caller remembers clearly. The 100 billion won contract. That's why they decided to agree to his demands. And now, they want to meet to sign the contract. Troy Handsome starts to think it might be a scam, but the caller insists it's not, saying that since such a large amount is involved, they're handling it seriously. For a moment, the protagonist is speechless. He says he's too tired at the moment for a meeting, but he'd like to see the contract first. Of course, the man says he'll send it. Still not fully believing it, he says he'll call again. After reviewing the contract, he hangs up. But shortly after, he receives the contract for the protagonist. His piece is over. Later, Choi Kun-sen goes to a law firm. The lawyer takes a look at the document, and at first glance, everything seems in order. But then the lawyer notices many clauses that could hurt the protagonist if the guild chooses to exploit them. Shorty Khan-sum wants to know exactly what those details are. The first point is that if he does anything that damages the guild's image, the contract will be voided. The executives are the ones who decide that. Another clause says that if they decide the player doesn't meet expectations, they can also terminate the contract. And the penalty for breaching the contract is quite significant. In that case, if any of these things happen, the protagonist has to pay 10 times the bonus amount. The protagonist is already losing patience with these people. According to the lawyer, he recommends scheduling a meeting to adjust these clauses and set a clear table for the bonus amount, not a multiplier of 10. The protagonist tries calling the guild representative. He knows he has to talk to them calmly, but that's going to be hard. The protagonist calls the first business manager, who had previously tried to make a deal. And this time the man offers a 50 million bonus. Choi Han-san says what he wanted was 100, and the negotiator knows that. But realistically speaking, even though the guild is a big company, the amount he's asking for is very high. To be honest, the man had to beg just to get the 50 billion approved. In this situation, Choi Kansum says he'll think about it. Even a man is surprised. Then he sends a contract to our hero. Troy Handsome examines the document, which appears to be the same as the previous one, except for the bonus. The lawyer checks whether everything went well. Our hero says yes, and asks him to review the new document. Of course, the man is happy to do it. But when he comes back, something is bothering him. The lawyer suspects the contract wasn't written by the same person. Joy Han-sung asks how he figured out that. It was written by 2 different people. He says the layout is the same, but there are some differences. To start, this one has fewer unfavorable clauses, and the penalty fee was reduced to 5 times the bonus amount. The protagonist wants to know why the same guild would offer 2 different contracts. Apparently, there's some kind of internal conflict going on, but that's actually good for our hero. It means he could get a better deal. So the hero asks the lawyer to create a contract based on the first one, but without the tricks. At the Hotel Choi, Hansing searches the internet and quickly sees that there's a dispute between the guild master and the vice leader. That's why our hero feels like messing with them. So our hero calls SEO, the second leader of the support team. First, obviously, the man is surprised and hopes his client has already made a decision. Choi Hansung says he wants a bigger bonus. He now asks for 200 billion. First comes the shock. Then the guy says that's probably not possible. So the protagonist asks for 300 billion. COO then comes clean and asks if our hero is messing with him. Choi Kansang says he's already been contacted by team leader Go Jin-suk, which makes it obvious that things aren't going well. Between them, Steve ends up falling right into the trap, and he ends up promising to match any offer that was made. Obviously, the two of them hate each other. Now he calls Go. Of course, the team leader is happy and asks if our hero has reviewed the contract. The protagonist says yes, and that he even wanted to sign it. Naturally, Go suggests they meet, but Choi Han-sung says he changed his mind. Of course, the man gets totally confused. Our hero says he's going to send over a contract he received by message. Go asks for a second to look at the document. When he receives it, the protagonist tells them to resolve their internal issues first, and then they can talk. Until then, the 100 billion bonus is now too low. He now proposes 200. Actually, 300 would be more acceptable. Naturally, the guy gets completely confused. But if he doesn't want it, he could just turn it down. Then he hangs up the phone. Now, the protagonist starts editing the audio from the call and sends it to both of them. Right after he throws away his phone, both of them listen to the edited audio. And by their reactions, it's not good. 1 month later, the vice leader is wondering where Choi Kin-sung went. COO says that in the dungeons they manage, the protagonist hasn't shown up. He also sent some people to look for him, but nothing. The boss yells that he's useless. He doesn't care how he just wants that kid found. Because of the incident caused by Choi Han-sung, the guild split in two. Due to the conflict between the leader and the vice president, SEO was lucky to check the association's records. But even so, it's not exactly legal to look at those government-managed documents. That's not the biggest problem right now. Choi Han-sung has completely disappeared. His boss asks if the protagonist went to another guild. In Sayo's opinion, probably not. But at that exact moment, the vice president explodes at the answer and tells the kid to get out of sight. As the door closes, even smashes a cup. Sayo walks through the hallway and avoids everyone. He's extremely nervous all because of elite audios. Because of that, most of the team sided with the other faction. He needs to find Choi Kin-sung no matter what. For our hero, just the hunting points are already enough. That way the protagonist is earning 600,000 per day. Little by little, he's getting what he wants. His sales are going well too. If he keeps it up, he'll reach his goals soon. Our hero only has one complaint. The sales window could be bigger, and he has to register items one by one. It would be better if he could register several at once. It's not like he can take out his electronic devices. Choi Kin-sung asks if there's a way to rank up. A user who sells medicine can register way more items than he can. Apparently, he needs 10 billion points to reach the next level, and our hero is already halfway there. While he's talking, a monster approaches from behind, attacking with his spear. The creature takes a boot to face and gets thrown to the ground. Then the protagonist prepares the magic missile, blowing up the monster. But the situation is a bit more complicated. A group of monsters shows up. Not only that they have acidic tongues, the group all jump on him at once. Our hero activates the fireball, blasting them all into the air. But that's not the end. They charge again without fear. Our hero is already getting annoyed. The point of drawing his sword. This time he goes on the offensive. The monster doesn't even see it coming when it's hit. Choi Han-sung is so fast he cuts down two at once, and his blade absorbs the blood it collects. It doesn't matter to the protagonist. Everyone here still goes down in one hit. Besides that, it looks like someone bought the batteries, and a new complaint shows up for him. Choi Han-sung is already getting irritated with the situation. The user's message is insistent that the batteries be sold for half the price. And all the other messages say the same thing. Our hero decides to check that person's profile. It's clear that he sells a wide variety of things, but the only things he bought from the protagonist were batteries. It would be a different story if he was buying electronic products. But this person is just buying disposable batteries. And on top of that, he's demanding they be sold for a lower price. Our hero wonders why he should do that. He quickly registers the new items right after the batteries are sold. But Choi Han-sung already expected that. And obviously another complaint comes in. At first the protagonist is a little confused, but he quickly understands that this guy wants to push him out of business, and he accepts the challenge. Ro wants to see how far the protagonist can go. He doubts he can be defeated. Ro is also a rookie with the buy and sell ability. That's how he became strong. And in that way, he became the ruler of his planet. But that doesn't mean it was easy. The points were never enough. And no matter how much he saved, it was simple to use. But gathering points was always difficult. Gro knows. The usual pattern is to gather points through hunting, buying skills to grow stronger. But every now and then someone different appears, someone who can sell unique items from their planet. Even when those items are under monopoly, in Grove's eyes everyone is just a delivery person. He buys all the person's items, and then files a complaint, forcing the person to be suspended for 3 months. Then he just repeats the process. No matter who it is, it always works. The person ends up having to sell the items, based on Grove's mood. Then he takes control of the item monopoly and forces another suspension on the seller. But something's wrong. There are no more batteries for sale. Apparently all of the protagonist's items have sold out. Our hero heads to the mall and leaves with a shopping cart full of items. Choi Hyun-soo has figured out that someone is trying to shut down his business, but he's already sold all of his items. Still, he doesn't intend to make things easy. Round 2 is about to begin. The battle of selling and reselling starts, but other players are also buying. Even after doubling the price, he keeps selling. Unfortunately, Gro will eventually catch up to him, but if you're going to clash anyway, the protagonist triples the price. As a result, his point total surpasses 10 billion. He's now at the rare level, and the sales window can hold up to 100 items. At first, the protagonist was offended, but now, this Gro guy ended up helping more than hurting. Though it was very risky. The complaints nearly outnumber the products. Fort Hunsam decides to change the items for sale. Now he wants to see how his opponent reacts. Gro, as soon as the kid gave up, he probably needs to restock. The same goes for Gro, who also took a heavy hit. When battery prices quadrupled, that was the worst part. He's extremely angry at our hero. Even so, he couldn't back down. Gro believes he pushed the protagonist to his limit. Just in time, that's when something strange happens. This time he sees a camping battery listed for sale. Gro freaks out at the sight of it. He can't believe Choi Hansen had something like that up his sleeve. On top of that, over 70 of them are registered, totaling more than 21 billion. There's also the problem that there may be even more of those available for purchase. Gro would have to invest a lot more. If he had any certainty, he'd buy them without hesitation. The problem is he doesn't know this guy's limit. In the end, Gro admits defeat. Another sale is completed successfully, with no new complaints, meaning his opponent gave up, and the camping batteries were bought by the same regular customers. Right after Roar lists the batteries for resale, and the protagonist bursts out laughing at this desperate move. Though thanks to him, our hero ended up selling more than expected. Back home, the protagonist sees something that makes him think. He needs to update his shop. Maybe he saw something interesting in the other world. The demon girl notices that an arcade machine and a game bundle have been added for sale. She already has a Nintendo, so she's unsure if it's worth buying. Choi Kansang is definitely richer now. He has 14 billion. But to rank up to heroic, he needs to reach the trillion range. For some reason, the difficulty for that is extremely high. Our hero knows it will take a long time to reach it, but if he does reach heroic, he'll be able to sell items like the elixir his father needs, and maybe he'll gain more benefits, besides increased sales slots. Rousing a bit, our hero sees that there are comments on his products. The first review was from someone named Barricade, praising the Nintendo for being fun, but the others complain that it's useless. The same person then bashes the shaver, saying it's only useful for people with beards, and other profiles agree with him. Veracut's username is everywhere, leaving reviews on all his products. However, people are furious that only now, after they stocked up on the old ones. Looks like they're starting to wise up. Chaudhry Khan's son knows. There are products that can have infinite energy using magic stones, but they cost a fortune, so they're not worth selling either. Aside from that, the arcade reviews are doing well. The protagonist decides to check the items. In the purchase window, our hero sees a dragon egg for sale, but it's very expensive. Barracuda writes in the review that having a dragon as a pet is worth it, but it's hard to feed, and at 30 billion it's tough to buy. Choi-Kan's son lies on his bed, imagining how much the legendary elixir costs. That's when his mother calls. Our hero wonders why she's calling at this hour. His mother wants to know if her son knows someone named Sue Dawn. At first, the protagonist doesn't remember, but she says, this guy is from the support team of the Siwa Guild. Troy Hansung suddenly flashes back to who that person is. She says he came to her house. Our hero wants to know if he just randomly showed up. His mom says he's outside right now. Choi Kun-sen says he'll call SEO later, but tells her not to open the door for him. Of course, she's worried, but her son promises to explain everything later. Before hanging up, his mother asks him to be careful. The protagonist promises everything will be fine. Right after Choi Kun-sung calls SEO, naturally the man is happy that he can finally speak with our hero. Without wasting time, the protagonist wants to know why he's at his mother's house. The man says it was just a casual visit, with no hidden motives. According to him, the hero's mother should also know about the contract, since it's important for his father. But our hero says he's the one who will be signing it. However, SIU says that kind of decision should be made with the family. Of course, the protagonist disagrees. The man thinks the protagonist is being too harsh, even after he managed to get the requested amount approved. But Choi Kun-sen doesn't see the contract the same way. Naturally, Seo acts like he doesn't know what's going on, which makes the protagonist even more irritated, since he knows about the clauses. Seo gets a bit nervous. He says it's just a precaution in the contract. But if the protagonist is as good as they expect, nothing will happen. Then comes the question again. What if he doesn't show his status window? Steve even tries to say that it doesn't matter, but he gets nervous and it clearly shows in the call. Troy Hansung doesn't expect the Soul Guild to understand how his powers work. When they see that he's level 1, the protagonist says he's hanging up and changing his number again. So if Sega calls again, no one will answer. And this guy better never go near the protagonist's mother. Again, this is the final warning. Once again, SIU is left with nothing, frustrated and anxious over his failure. After that, he calls the team leader. He wants to know if they managed to track Choi Kansen. Apparently, yes. But the protagonist isn't in any guild-controlled area. SIU then orders them to call the Wu Yan and tells them to take action. The sales leader doesn't want to ruin our hero's life. It's just a threat to make him come running back, asking the guild for protection. Koo Hyam-sing is out shopping again, because his items have been selling a lot lately. He scrolls on his phone and as always fills his cart. But our hero stops in front of Gossi, then walks out with bags full of clothes. With that, he's done with his shopping day. Afterward, he heads to the portal. There he's ready to hunt. A group of monsters sees the intruder in their territory and attacks him in a horde. With one move, our hero takes down 2 of them at once. Then he shifts his blade's position and slices a frogman in 2. Right after, the protagonist jumps ready to use his fireball, blasting the area into flames. 5 hours later, Choi Hun-sam achieves the milestone of hunting 10,000 frogmen. He thinks it went faster than expected. Another day completed. The protagonist exits the portal without trouble. This time, he decides to head to the Goblin Dungeon today as well. But a group of strangers seems to be waiting for him. They visually confirm the target. Then one of the group members decides to follow him. Corey Kansum crosses the portal and ends up in a forest. It's his first time in this kind of biome. Now it's time to infiltrate. The protagonist activates stealth and heads deeper into the forest. He finds the goblins gathered, so he decides to begin the hunt. The small creatures won't even stand a chance against the magic missiles. The goblins charge in a group, but the protagonist blows them up with a fireball. Only it's not over. Another group is coming his way. Shorty Hun's son considers these creatures to be fairly clever, but they all get blown up too. The hordes are large, and they don't stop coming. The protagonist still uses his lightning bolts to thin their numbers. When he least expects it, an attack comes without warning. But our hero manages to deflect it with his hand. The goblins are using blow darts. But his cloak is enough to block the attacks. With one motion, the creatures are sent crawling. Our hero climbs a tree. From up there, he sees the battlefield. The creatures keep coming, and he jumps down, smashing one into the ground. Finally, the creatures begin to show fear. The protagonist doesn't give them time, and slices one in half. With the ground full of crystals, he's done for today. He opens the portal ready to store his items. Our hero senses someone approaching. Koi-san even thinks it's more goblins, but it's a man asking, who dares enter his hunting ground? And he's not alone. The protagonist didn't expect to see a player here, and by the looks of it, they're after Choi-kun-sung. Of course, our hero doesn't understand what's going on. Their leader says, no one should be hunting in his territory. Choi-kun-sung says he paid to be here like everyone else, but the group's leader says this area belongs to him. So now, the protagonist has to hand over his magic stones. And on top of that, he has to give up his gear for the trouble. Our hero never expected to meet a bully like this. He had only heard about this kind of thing online. Shira Handsome warns that they're making a serious mistake. The group's leader decides to explain something to him. Inside the dungeon, modern weapons or electronic devices don't work. So any problem becomes one person's worry against the other. Any fatal accident can be blamed on a monster. The message is they rob players and do it at any cost. But the protagonist doesn't understand one thing. They still want to threaten our hero. After seeing that battlefield, tired of waiting, the leader orders his men to attack. But Chu Hyung-sun thinks they're way too slow. The first spear flies past him and gets stuck in the ground. Worse, it was meant to cause a serious injury. Right after the rest of the group comes in. With one move, he cuts the sword of the first attacker. Then the protagonist kicks him to push him away, throwing the bandit far off. The third raises a black blade to strike with a punch. He's out of the fight too, not just the thieves' leader. But everyone is left speechless. Now they're offended and the order is to kill. One of the warriors leaps in without hesitation, but the protagonist simply cuts his sword in two, with an elbows to the nose. That one's done. Another one tries to attack from behind, without even realizing the man is in serious danger. But at the last moment, our hero shifts his blade's position. The man ends up with just a scratch on his shoulder. Then Choi-kun-sung grabs the guy's head and slams it into the ground. But our hero is already losing patience. Now, three come at once. The protagonist decides to put away his blade. Then he opens a portal to retrieve an item. A shield comes into his hand. In the middle of the forest, someone watches closely, and he sees the group getting absolutely destroyed. For him, the order would be easier if he could just take the target's life. But maybe cutting off a leg will be enough. The man steps out from the bushes. Choi-kun's son notices his arrival and mistakes him for a security officer. From the looks of it, this one is more serious. You and our hero can tell. The group calls the man their guild master. Some of the thieves look confused, as if they've never seen this person before. The master asked our hero if he's the one responsible for this mess. But before you can explain that, they were the ones who started it. Choi-han-sam blocks a sword attack. This guy is way stronger than the others. Our hero is pushed back. The master didn't expect a rookie to block his strike, especially one who's already completed the second class. Advancement. Someone like this shouldn't even be in a dungeon, but he's deeply offended by that. The master says he wanted this to be over quickly. Now, he needs to tear off an arm to feel satisfied. He jumps at our hero with all his might, but once again he's blocked. Choi-kun-sung deflects his blade without a problem. Our hero has to admit this guy is strong. He's definitely different from those low-level thugs. His strength and speed are greater than the protagonist's. His blade is faster than the vampiric sword. Good thing he had a shield. Only now does the protagonist realize. He doesn't even know how he ended up in this situation. Shira Hansang decides he needs to get out of here, so he summons the fire spear. The guild master doesn't even see it coming. A massive explosion erupts. Our hero uses the moment to run. The master is still alive, but with his hair scorched. Choi-kun-sung is impressed. That the man survives such a deadly blow. Already out of patience, the swordsman charges and closes the distance. In a second, delivering a strike with his sword, the protagonist still manages to block it with his shield, but the blow would have been fatal on the ground. He summons his fire spear again, and the man leaps away. The two stare each other down. But our hero has another plan. The spear strikes the ground, creating a smoke screen. For a second, the master seems lost, but he swings blindly and hits the shield. The man is pleased to have found his target. He tries to strike again, but the boy dodges to the side. Our hero realizes his opponent isn't trying to kill him. Shori Kinsung straps the shield onto his back and creates another fire spear, causing another explosion between them. Once again, smoke screen fills the area, so he doesn't see the next strike coming. Troy Hansen uses the opportunity to open the sales menu. He finds the item he needs, a book. That increases stats by 50% for 60 seconds, but it costs 20 billion points. As soon as he confirms, the book appears in his hands. Quickly, he learns the skill. The effect is instantly felt in his body. Then the guild master appears again. Thinking his target has finally given up, our hero only has 60 seconds. He can't waste them. That's when the guild master charges at full speed. Koi Kansang is ready to finish in with one blow, but Li Shuvi steps between them. At first glance, our hero doesn't recognize her. The guild master doesn't even realize his sword was sliced in two with just one movement of her weapon, and he's unable to react to the next strike. Our hero was left speechless. His opponent lies unconscious on the ground. Corey Hansang can't even tell what just happened. Lee, on the other hand, recognizes the protagonist. She says she was too rude the last time they met. Our hero slowly begins to remember her. Troy Kunson has a flash of memory of the girl who gave him the rare potion. Now he remembers her clearly. The protagonist wastes no time and thanks Lee, but the team leader apologizes and says she was watching everything from the beginning. That takes her hero by surprise. The girl explains she had been following everything since the start of the ambush. With every word, Troy Hunsum grows more confused. Lee, smiling, says all these people are criminals. Our hero assumes she was acting as a witness to confirm their crimes. But that's not it. She just wanted to see how skilled he really was. Again, Tri Kiansing is completely confused. The girl decides to start from the beginning. She introduces herself as Li Shuei, head of security for the Hero Association, and she wasn't following the bandits. She was following the protagonist. But for now, she wants to continue the conversation outside the dungeon. First, she wants to clear the area of these criminals, and the protagonist agrees. Corey Hansung asks if there's any record of these people committing crimes before. Lee says there's no hard evidence, but they've been linked to several disappearance cases. That's the word they use, but the charges are for murder. However, the protagonist says they didn't seem to have that intention with him. Lee agrees with that too. They both return to the beginning of the conflict. Our hero wants to know why they would do something like this, and that's exactly what she wants to find out. With a leap, the girl vanishes. Lee returns to the guild leader and says she knows he's awake. The man remains on the ground, and she warns him she's not in the mood to be violent, then gives him a jab. Instantly, the man wakes up. It would have been easier for her if he had already gotten up. Lee wants to know the reason behind the ambush. The man says he was just protecting his guild members who were getting beaten. He goes on to claim he was attacked by a member of the association with that reason, and that he was injured while unconscious. He promises to call the police, but she asks if he was really unconscious. How does he know she's from the association? The guy is speechless and even starts to stutter. Lee points her spear at his face, calls him an idiot. So she decides to vaguely explain the situation. They're both inside a dungeon. There's no evidence of anything from in here, so you better stop thinking that. Troy Hansen would go to the police to back up his story. Our hero even falls silent at that. Lee advises that if the guy doesn't want a goblin dungeon to become his grave, it's best he start talking. It would have been easier if he at least had one living witness. But the man is stubborn. He starts yelling that a member of the association can't threaten anyone. Clearly, this guy doesn't understand the situation he's in. Lee politely asks to be left alone for a moment. Obviously, he agrees. She asks him to go tie up the other bandits, since it could be dangerous. It's better if they don't escape. Our hero quickly leaves, leaving the two of them alone. The guild master immediately starts begging for mercy, but all that can be heard is his desperate scream. Shori Kim-san does as requested and locks all the bandits inside a circle. Our hero keeps wondering what their goal was. His unique ability was never revealed. Maybe this all happened because of Sue and the three-headed beast. Now our hero doesn't know what to do. Maybe the guild really is to blame. Shoi Kanzan doesn't know what to say. When Lee asks how he defeated the beast, our hero decides he needs to become stronger. But the Saiwell Guild isn't going to give up. And based on his last experience, even someone from the association isn't that trustworthy. Our hero swore life would get easier once he became a player. Leah then arrives worried that it took too long. She explains that those bandits were hired by Sue. The order was to cripple the protagonist. The plan was to make him join the guild afterward. But even though they have evidence, the association still can't take action against Sue. Shortcoming. Something looks a little uneasy, but he understands. Lee then asks for them to leave. Association takes all the prisoners away in a bus. Our hero just watches. Lee returns and asks for a moment so they can talk. Now they're both in the association building. Froey Hudson decides to get straight to the point. He wants to know why she was following him. Lee replies that it has to do with the three-headed beast incident. The protagonist asks how she knew he was in the Goblin Dungeon. She says she saw the dungeon entry log, but our hero thinks that sounds illegal. Lee explains that the association has permission for that. She spends the next half hour explaining the process to him. Since she's on a secret investigation, she just wanted to find out what his ability was. But then everything else happened, so she apologizes for not stepping in sooner. In the end, she wanted to see the protagonist's limits. She got her confirmation when she saw the fight with the guild leader. That Corey Cohen-san was the one who hunted the giant panther. Our hero wants to know if he'll be punished for hiding the fact that he was the one who killed the monster. She says no. The reason the association is looking for him is something else. What she wants is to reward him. Corey Han-san wasn't expecting that. On top of that, she has an offer, but the protagonist already knows. She wants to recruit him. Still, he makes it clear he's not interested in joining any group. Lee expected that, but before anything else, she wants to explain the offer first. They're willing to give him a 100 billion bonus, plus the various benefits that come with being part of the association, including tax waivers and free equipment. The protagonist assumes he'll have to show his status window, but Lee says it's not necessary. He only has to take a test. Choi Komatsu, our hero, wants to know what kind of test. All he has to do is sit down with someone she chooses and answer every question truthfully. Our hero imagines it's going to be an interrogation. There are people with a skill called the contract of truth. If the person tells the truth, nothing happens. But if the person lies, red lights appear on their body. Shuei Kinsum wants to know why they're going this far. He thinks it would have been better to just hire a high-level player. But Lee says it depends on the individual. Someone who is truly powerful would be even harder to recruit. And someone who just has numbers isn't even worth it. The protagonist asks if it's because of the level 20. Lashi doesn't deny it. Troy Kansam says he doesn't know how to break that rule, and if it's revealed to be true. He wants to know if the association would still want to recruit. The hero Lee says yes. Just the fact that he got this strong in 3 months is already enough reason to invest in him. Our hero imagines that besides the failed sum in the association, other guilds must have found out about him by now. The way he is now, he's still weaker than his enemies. That's why Troy Hansum decides to go through the test. Lee is happy to hear that. A woman is brought into the room, just as our hero imagines. She's going to use the contract of truth skill. She asks for permission. Troy Hansum agrees. The player explains that once the skill is activated, a message will appear asking for consent. All he has to do is press yes. The contract of truth begins. The message appears just like she said, even though he doesn't like the feeling he accepts. For a second, An energy wraps around our hero, but it quickly fades. Then he notices the players leaving the room. Now only Troy Jones and Li Shui remain. She tells him to relax. It's just a few questions he needs to answer. Our hero takes a deep breath, ready for whatever comes to begin. The first question is whether he really awakened only 3 months ago. The next question is if he knows how to bypass the level 20 law. And the answer is no. Then she says she believes the protagonist is probably at level 140, and asks why he's hunting in low-level dungeons. That question makes our hero think. Up until now, the questions have been easy. Lee also wants to know if he has a unique skill. Our hero stays silent. She reminds him he has to answer the questions. The leader asks directly if all of this is because of his ability. Shorty Kevin Song answers yes. She wants to know if he can use that power on another player. The protagonist thinks for a moment and then says no. He can't. The next question is whether he used his unique ability to bypass the level 20 law. Choi Kun-sin thinks carefully before answering, but he admits that yes, he did. Levin says the effect of the skill has ended. Our hero asks if he needs to do it again, but she says there's no need. He answered everything she needed to know. She'd have been suspecting for a while, but now they're certain that the protagonist has a unique skill. Shori Khan-sun guesses that she also has one. The leader agrees, but says she can't reveal it. But yes, she has a unique skill. The protagonist seems disappointed that he's not the only one. As the name suggests, the leader explains, this kind of power is unique to the person. No one else in the world will have it. And everyone who's ever had a skill like that has reached high positions. The realization hits the protagonist. The one in front of him is one of those people. Lee explains that there's a limit to how much information is shared with regular people. Just because someone is high level doesn't mean they get information about others. There are laws that protect players, so they can keep their unique skills secret. The protagonist asks if he has permission to know all this, and of course he does. In fact, it was technically wrong for her to reveal that she has a special ability, but since they'll be working together, it's fine. Only the protagonist says he never agreed to join the association. Unfortunately for him, and the moment he revealed he had a unique skill, he was out of options. Our hero is speechless. Lee says he doesn't have to worry, because it's not the association recruiting him. It's her parents. The leader places a document on the table. The player contract. Apparently, he can only do this on a national level. There are almost no conditions in the contract, and in case of injury on the job, the compensation is more than generous. Aside from the fact that he has full authority to do whatever he wants with his magic, stones, and items. Lee takes the opportunity to hand him the pen. Then she points out where he should sign. Honestly, the protagonist is being given everything he needs. But there's one condition that's really bothering. It's a lifetime contract. And our hero even thinks it feels like slavery. Corey Khan's son gets curious. If other people have contracts like this, Lee says of course not. Otherwise, the organization would go bankrupt. The reason he's receiving a contract like this is because of his unique skill. Our hero is surprised. But it's obvious he can bypass the level 20 law. Troy Han-sung can level up and get magic, stones, and items, even from low-level dungeons, which means he can keep leveling up infinitely. To her, this is a chance to recruit a player with the potential to be the strongest in the world, so it's worth spending a bit more. Our hero thinks she's completely wrong, but that works in Choi Hyun-sang's favor. The protagonist asks if he can change the contract duration. The leader is a bit surprised. She didn't expect that to be an issue. Lee asked if he knows how many people with unique skills exist in the world. There's no exact number, but most around 80. And before Troy Han-sun appeared, she was the only one in Korea, stating the obvious. Unique skill is something rare. She understands that. The contract term is a little strange, but that's because they can't risk losing someone so rare to another country or private guild. That's why they extended the contract for as long as possible. But yes, they can review that clause. Troy Kansum wants to change the contract to a maximum of 1 year. She says that's impossible. However, in exchange, we'll also have to reduce the bonus to 10 billion instead of 100. But the answer remains the same. He proposes 2 years. Lee says she'll keep the bonus to maintain the contract duration. There's a moment of silence again. The protagonist tries to keep the contract, 2 years with a 20 billion bonus. But being who he is, if there are no issues with the association, they'll consider renewing the contract. But if she refuses, then no contract will be signed. She asks if he's planning to go to another country. Choi Kun-sung says the protagonist wants to get to know the association before committing. Lee says there are more benefits than downsides. But our hero wants to decide that for himself. She's offering him a lot of money. But the protagonist doesn't want to become anyone's slave because of it. What he needs now is someone to protect him. Of course, if it's a peaceful place, he'll stay. But not before seeing the house first. Our hero says that if he likes the association, in 2 years, he'll definitely sign that contract. Troy comes. Something sees those 2 years as an internship. No one has anything to lose. Lee realizes this is going to be complicated, and she can't decide this alone. The leader wants to speak with her superior first. So she asks for a few minutes. A bit more satisfied, he agrees. Time passes and Troy Kunson waits. Fiddle him with his phone. Lee returns and says she accepts the proposal, but there's a condition. Our hero is curious to know what it is. She says that if another association or guild makes him an offer, the protagonist has to report it immediately. Also, if the offer is equal, Choi Kan-sun will have to sign the contract again with them without any problem. Our hero agrees. She presents the new document. Lee hopes both of them do well during this period. They shake hands, wishing each other the best, even if it's only for a short time. Now that he's signed the contract, Lee suggests getting some new equipment, since all of his is rented. Pro-hee Kan-sung says his sword and cloak are rarer rank, so Lee says just replacing the rest will be enough. The next morning, they're at the equipment storage. The weapons on the wall catch the eye. They really have everything here. The protagonist is curious if everyone has access to these items. Lee says not everyone. It depends on the player's position. Item rank access is restricted, but of course that doesn't apply to our hero. And he's quite happy to hear that. First, he sees a sweet armor light and durable. That gives 5 dexterity. Choi Kan-sun doesn't think it's as good as he expected, so he better choose carefully. Lee says she'll explain how the association works, while they wait for the gear to be adjusted. To his body, now the fun part begins. Lee is also going to say which department the protagonist will belong to. Our hero is curious. It'll be the surveillance team. But the leader explains that their job is to go into dungeons when there's an accident involving monsters or players, and they help resolve those problems. But since the support teams are understaffed, they'll be helping them out too. Our hero wonders if he'll be useful. Since being alone, it might be too much work for him. She explains he'll be sent to dungeons that match his level to make things easier. Lee also reminds him that she's his superior, so if anything comes up, he just needs to call her. Troy Kumsum then asks if he can mention some issues he had before joining. She gladly agrees to listen. To start, the data on the magic stones he collected and sold was handed over to the Siwa Guild. Those guys even had access to his location while he was hunting. Lee says she'll handle his incidents while dealing with the current case, with plans to give that guild proper punishment. But our hero realizes she doesn't seem surprised by what he said. She says this has been happening for a while, and if it were up to her, Sue wouldn't exist anymore. Now, changing the subject, Lee says they'll also provide housing. Troy Hunsum says that's not a problem, since he doesn't usually hunt in the same place for too long. But his leader says that actually is a bit of an issue, maybe because of the emergency support work. She says they need to properly organize their personnel. Lee wants Choi Kun-sung to at least notify her every time he goes to a dungeon. That way she can assign him work nearby. Then she hands him a company card to cover all his expenses. Choi Heng-sun guesses that's not normal either. Lee says if other people find out about it, they'll protest saying he's getting special treatment. Officially, he'll be treated As someone who is constantly being relocated, our hero sincerely thanks her. But his leader says she has to do her best to make sure he renews his contract in 2 years, and her sweet tone hits him right in the heart. Later back at the building, the jacket fits our hero perfectly. Lee gives him a card, showing that he's now an official member of the organization. He has the authority to conduct surveillance and the skills to fulfill his duties. That should take care of a few complications. For now on, our hero asks if he can leave now. Lee says yes. She just mentions that during time off, he might be called in for emergency support. But that's pretty rare. Shorty comes to his last questions when he gets his signing bonus. He says it's already in his account. Lee guesses he needed some quick cash. The protagonist says he wanted to buy some skill books. His leader says the association has a stock, and she's willing to take him there now. Now our hero can't stop thinking about how important it is to get stronger. So he plans to invest his entire bonus in skills toy. Han-sung says he doesn't have as much as he expected. Lee says that's because those books are really hard to find. The supply is very low compared to the demand, so they sell out fast. Not to mention that the auction market is much bigger than the association. Choi Kenshin finds the tax system fascinating. They ask if he's sure about buying so many. What if they're not effective? But the protagonist says that for him, any of them could be useful one day. His immortality passive just leveled up to unique rare rank. Lee announces her work is done for now. This vehicle is insured, and a protagonist can treat it as his own car. Troy Kunsa means goodbye to his boss in the president's office. A man can only think that 2 years is far too short. Lee asks if the man regrets not getting a lifetime contract. The president admits he does. He wanted the protagonist for as long as possible, but Lee reminds him that he wanted to save money. A bit offended, the president says he would never exploit someone just because of a lifetime clause, and he even improved the contract. But Lee says he did exploit her at the beginning. She points out he wouldn't have improved the conditions if she hadn't spoken up, and in her opinion, Troy Handsome was right to set a time limit. The president says the circumstances were different. Back then, they learned about unique skills from her. But that's exactly why Lee said she should be treated better. But the president refuted her, saying that she is treated well. They'd only accepted those terms because of her. If it had been up to him, they would have forced the boy to sign the contract by offering $100 billion. Lee says that on the other hand, if that had happened, the information would have leaked beyond the country's borders. The president says she's the one who threatened him, saying she'd leak the details to foreign player associations. But the team leader says she only said the odds would increase. Nothing more, though. Obviously, the man doesn't buy that. She says he knows her so well. He probably knows what she's thinking right now. The president says he doesn't know. So the girl says she wants a 2-year contract, too. Of course, that's impossible. Frankly, the president would have done anything to get Choi Hyun-sun to sign a lifetime deal if she hadn't interfered. Lee calls him a villain to his face. The president defends himself, saying he's just protecting the nation, and there's nothing wrong with wanting someone to be in the association forever. But the leader says that, from an individual's point of view, no one would want that. He even wonders what Cindy committed in a past life to be stuck with her. Lee then asks to cancel her own contract. Obviously, answer is no. She then walks out of the room, confused. The president asks where she's going, and the woman replies that she's going to work. Shola Khan's son transfers 1 billion won to his mother. That way he hopes to cover his father's and the household expenses for about 10 years. The protagonist didn't want to look like an idiot, so he only bought 1 skill book of each regeneration type. His goal is to evolve his immortality. Our hero heads to a place to check the online store. There, he sees a skill book that increases passive recovery. That one is also rarer than the immortality one, even if it doesn't get absorbed. There's no issue in buying it. They explain that passives are always tied to active skills. And while active ones can be bad and left unused, our hero plans to buy only things that are rare, rank, or higher. Corey Han-sun says he used almost the ideal amount. Now it's time for him to spend some points. The protagonist managed to sell a lot today. His video games and laptops are quite popular. He also sold some perfume makeup and a few watches. But he already suspected one. The best-selling item is the battery. Our hero goes to a second-hand electronics store. When he enters, all the staff bow to him. Corey Kinsang immediately asks about the camping. Batteries, the employees say they charge them all. Our hero is grateful, but he has a small. He wants to know if next time they can sell the same amount of batteries, fully charged again. The vendor assures him they can. On top of that, he earned a discount from point accumulation. Corey Chansung thanks them before leaving. Now at night, the protagonist takes another look at the shop. He remembers the last fight he was in, so he decides to go all in. Tronic Handsome plans to spend around 3 billion. Medicines are around 5 billion points, while rare ones cost about 10 million each. To get his attributes up to around 200, he'll need to spend about 5 billion. Shori Kansung starts buying. Since attribute boosts affect all abilities, it's easy to notice the difference. With the other 5 billion, he'll upgrade his immortality passive to rare level. After leveling up again, his immortality loses the slow regeneration effect. It's now normal theoretically. So he grabs his blade to test. It cuts his own finger. The wound disappears instantly. Right after that, Lee calls him. Shuehan's son answers the phone to talk to his superior. She says she filed a police report against the SEO executives, and with the evidence they had, they ended up getting arrested. The protagonist is relieved to hear that. He didn't want to deal with those guys again. But Lee says that Gil has connections in the police, though they didn't interfere. Instead, they're cooperating, all because of an internal faction conflict. Apparently, the guild master is actually working with the police to help arrest the vice leader. Our hero wants to know what happened to the man who was threatening him to sign the contract. Police says an arrest warrant was issued for that person too, and the guild leader who attacked him came clean, exposing everything he had been doing, including the people who helped him in the guild. The vice president is one of them. Lee asked him to turn on the TV. Corey Hansung asked for just a minute. On the news are talking about the guild case. It's being treated as a scandal. The revelation that Sue and hired people to kill, and that the vice leader has already been removed from his position. In addition, they've been helping fugitives. Choi Kan-sun confirms he was watching the news. It's clear the vice leader won't get off easy this time. Everyone who supported him is now turning their backs. The protagonist thanks her for the support. But Lee said she actually wishes she had dealt with it sooner. Joy. Kan-sun says he'll treat her to dinner as compensation, but she replies that empty words carry no weight. But he wasn't joking. So his leader tells him to set it up and let her know. After that, they say goodbye. The protagonist hangs up the phone. For a while, he zones out a little. Then the boy remembers he needs to go by his skill. Books. Our hero wonders when something will finally change. This is his last book. After offering almost every recovery type skill to strengthen the rank of his ability, he hopes something will shift. And this time it works. Koi Han-sung lets out a cheer of celebration. Finally, he's ranked up. Now to start with, he's at unique heroic level, and he can only die if both his head and heart are destroyed together. His weakness just got reduced, and this ability can still evolve again. But it's terrifying to imagine how much time and resources it'll take to reach legendary rank. That's enough for today. Time is sleep. Tomorrow, our hero begins his first emergency support shift. Choi Kinsum arrives at the location. He's even a little nervous. The team asks if he's the guy on duty today. The room is full of players. The protagonist confirms, yes, the shift is his. Some of the players eye him with a bit of suspicion. One of them asks again if he's the assigned one. And again, Choi Hun-sun confirms it. Then our hero says he's new. And the guy is happy about that. He's been asking for a rookie for a long time. And he finally got one. His name is Shu Tekel. Then our hero introduces himself, shaking his hand. SIU starts showing him around. And he seems pretty excited. But the girl accompanying him doesn't share the same energy. They head to the 7th outpost. Bert Shu says he can stay there, since Troy Konsum was assigned to dungeons below the 100th level. Let me go on the pseudonym. This girl is 25. and she's nearly the same level as the protagonist, who's approaching level 100. Our hero hopes the two of them get along well, but she a little reluctantly just agrees. Ko scolds the girl for being so rude. The girl says he's younger than her, so she's just being informal. Then Suryam asks the protagonist if he was upset. Corey Kinsum already figured out she likes SEO a lot. It's SEO who apologizes. But Suryam doesn't even ask what's going on. Like a gentleman, the protagonist says he wasn't offended. But Corey Kinsum mentions that. He's not younger than her. He's 27, he says, surprising Ko. The guy says he looks way younger. Suryam feels a little awkward and apologizes. Choi Han-sung says it's fine, but the girl leaves immediately. Then Ko, wrapping up the explanation, says that when a support call comes in, the protagonist will go with her. He says he wanted to pair Choi Han-sung with someone else, but she's the only one who goes to dungeons below level 100. The protagonist says that's not a problem. Actually, what matters is that his attributes now match those of a level 200, so he'd be fine even alone. This is Troy Hunson's corner. That means he can do whatever he wants here, as long as he's always ready to leave for a shift. For him, the poor guy overslept a whole 4 hours of sleep. Having a salary feels great to the protagonist, especially when he doesn't have to do anything. He even considers taking night shifts and sleeping right there. Suddenly, Choi Han-sung notices something. Sung Young shows up saying they've been called. Luckily, the protagonist was already prepared. The girl explains. She heard a report of a monster that exceeded the dungeon's level. Drake Hunt's son asks if it's okay for just the two of them to go, and she says they can handle it. It's just a level 70 werewolf appearing in a level 60 dungeon. And fortunately, there haven't been any victims yet, but that's probably because the level difference is only 10. Suri Young says that normally she's called to even lower level places. Korean Sun guesses that this time they were dispatched due to a lack of personnel. The girl confirms and explains that when a player passes level 50, they get a class advancement and start going deeper into the dungeon. And further, there are no security officers. The problem is that players are used to being protected, so when something goes wrong, a lack of experience makes the chaos worse. Shuei Aiken-sun guesses from her enthusiasm that the girl actually enjoys this. Sung Yang says they get a bonus for entering dungeons, and since they're on standby, some extra money doesn't hurt. Corey Khan. Sun notes that he thinks this monster won't be easy. His partner tells him not to be scared. She then begins to focus, and her body starts to change. The girl transforms right before his eyes. The protagonist says she turned into a cat, but she corrects him saying she's a snow leopard, which, by the way, is part of the cat family. But our hero decides to apologize before she gets even more annoyed. In her new form, she uses her sense of smell to track a creature. Su Yang says that if our hero isn't quick, she'll leave him behind. Right after she takes off, quickly gaining distance. Troy Han-sun thinks she's very fast. Quickly, the girl finds the werewolf. The protagonist says her nose is like a hunting dog's, but his partner says she's way better than any dog. As they approach, the wolf howls, ready to fight. Su Yong leaps and crushes the monster with one blow. Troy Han-sun finds it a bit frightening. The protagonist compliments her flexible armor, and the girl says it was really expensive, so it better be good. Now they can head back. On the way back, Suyo notices something. First she hears a sound, then she smells another werewolf. She says that before the last one was defeated, it must have called its pack, because a group of monsters heading their way. A considerable number of werewolves is approaching. Choi Kan-sung asks if this happens often, and his partner says usually no, but sometimes yes, it happens. And if this keeps up, the dungeon's name and level will change. The protagonist stays silent. His partner says they'll report everything after they deal with these guys. She then goes ahead. He draws his vampiric blade. The wolves attack together. Suyeon takes one down with a single hit. Choi Kim-sum also doesn't have much trouble, but one of the wolves howls again, and their behavior changes with the arrival of a different wolf. This time the creature is much bigger. The monster is twice the size of the others. Sui Yang says she'll handle the werewolf king. Jae-ui Kong-sun swears that this creature is around level 100, so he believes she'll be fine. At that moment, our hero senses an approach. Two monsters attack at once, and together they're taken down. The creatures try to pin him down, but it's useless. Choi Han-sun believes they'll finish quickly. The wolves keep rushing in, and he keeps striking them down with his magic. Lightning. The rest fall without even realizing what hit them. Once finished, our hero wonders if she's done yet, but the two are still fighting. The protagonist then decides to help. He charges forward, but the creature warms at him. A mysterious magical effect is triggered, and the werewolf vanishes before his eyes. The monster then attacks with everything it's got, landing a direct hit on his partner, delivering a deep slasher, and then the beast grabs her by the neck. With its fangs, Choi Kansang launches a fire missile, but he misses the target. The girl now appears to be unconscious. Choi Kansang rushes to strike it from behind, but suddenly Su Yong is thrown into his arms. Our hero is worried about his partner. He immediately starts using healing magic on her. Choi Kansang remembers the potion he got earlier. At that moment, the werewolf king attacks him from behind, but its claws are Wikipedia / instead. The protagonist admits the creature was clever. This beast could have defeated her the entire time, but it was just waiting for our hero to let his guard down. The other wolves were only sent to buy time. The beast laughs, proving it's true. The monster then attacks, but it misses. Cory Khan's son counterattacks. Both begin exchanging extremely fast blows. The last hit pushes the wolf far back, but it leaps, disappearing from sight again. Troy Hunsum already has an idea of where it went. The werewolf tries to attack the unconscious girl, but before it takes a kick to the face. It's thrown far away. Troy Hunsum arrived just in time. Kane howls to summon his followers again, and the protagonist is surrounded. It's definitely a tough situation, but it also works in our hero's favor. Our hero doesn't need to hold back. He activates the magical missile, flame spell, and ice spell. The monsters charge at him. Meanwhile, Choi Kenshin also summons a spear and a fireball. All that energy concentrates. At one point, Choi Kenshin waves goodbye to them. A blast of energy sends everyone flying. A rain of magical energy falls from the sky. The monsters are pierced through by it. Creatures are struck from every direction. The effect finally fades, and judging by the results, our hero decides he will need to burn all his points at once. Choi Kansang refocuses his energy into his blade. He unleashes another rain of magic on his enemies. But Werewolf King tries to flee for his life. Our hero admits the creature is good at dodging. Let's see if it can handle a unique skill. A wall of ice forms in front of the creature. The monster starts to realize the tough spot it's in. This time at Choi Kansan, it seemed pretty slow. His magic festival returns, ready to rain down on the enemy. The Werewolf King is cornered. Spells fly toward it. The monster has no options left. A random attack comes to reap its life. The creature is obliterated from the face of the earth. Troy Hunsum opens his portal, and he collects everything the werewolf Kane dropped. The most curious thing is that he finds a heart. As an item, our hero decides to check what it does. According to the description, it allows him to transform into a werewolf for 60 minutes and boosts all attributes by 30%, but afterward permanently drop by 10%. Choi Kansan is a bit surprised by what this heart can do, but he thinks the penalty is too steep. Still, before anything else, he needs to get out of there. Choi Kansan is sitting beside Suyin when the team arrives. SIU asks about her condition. He says the external wounds are healed, but just to be safe, she should go to a hospital. Sayo thanks our hero, saying if it weren't for Troy Kansum, things would have turned out much worse. The protagonist says he was just doing his job. Now that it's done, he's heading out. After everything, Suyong personally thanks Troy Kansum, but he definitely wasn't expecting to see her. A little awkwardly, he says he was just doing his job. But what catches his attention is that the people are the same as yesterday. Ko says that after they handled the situation, everyone decided to return to base and rest, and apparently our hero did the same. Shorty Kansum says he prefers resting at the base because that way Sleep gets paid. Ko says that when he first saw our hero, he thought he was just some spoiled, rich kid. Because of the rare equipment that cost a fortune, the protagonist says that before awakening, he was a construction laborer. He was going through a rough time. Our hero explains. He had to work hard because of his father's health. His whole family went through a lot just to get by. CIO comes clean and says he received an unofficial order to look after the protagonist, and that's why he assumed Troy Kansas' son was some pampered rich guy. The protagonist finds it funny that he was mistaken for someone born into privilege out of nowhere. Choi Kenshin says it's probably Lee who's looking out for him, catching his colleague off guard. He explains that she was the one who recruited him into the association. That confirms to Ko that there are high expectations for the protagonist, since it was the captain herself who recruited him. As might falls, our hero decides to restock before going to bed. Soo-young takes the opportunity to call out to him. This time she apologizes, but the protagonist doesn't even know why. She explains that her assumptions led her to treat her colleague rudely, without reason, so she's apologizing. Troy Hunsung asks what she was thinking. Subaru says she had the wrong idea because of someone she had worked with in the past. The protagonist becomes curious to know more. It was all because of his superior's child in the association, and it hurt many people without reason. But the person responsible for it came out unscathed, while the other members took the blame for the incident. After that, she thought she needed to take firmer actions. Koi Hansung says he's fine now. He wasn't that bothered. Once again, she thanks him. And our hero now thinks this girl is very kind. Koni Hansung remembers something. He says he has a question, but if she doesn't want to answer, it's fine. But the girl quickly says she'll say what she can. Soo-young tells him he can ask. That's the kind of person she is. Trotty Hansun thinks she's an innocent girl. He says it might be a bit hard for her to hear, because it has to do with her ability. Stu-young says she figured it would be about that. She spent the next few minutes explaining it to him. According to her, the ability is called Beast Transformation. When it's activated, it boosts strength, dexterity, and vitality. That makes her both a tank and a warrior. But the weakness is low resistance to magic. Still, she didn't need to tell these things to Troy Hansun. A week later, things are going smoothly. He hasn't had any more incidents. The first day was pretty hectic, but things settled down afterward. In fact, things are kind of boring now. His popularity dropped a bit in sales, but batteries and electronics are still doing well. Maybe he'll be able to buy another heroic rank skill. Soon Koyunza decides to go hunting for a bit and earn some points. The portal employee asks to see the protagonist registration. He asks for just a moment, then hands over his card. The man gets startled when he sees it's from the emergency surveillance team. Then he wishes our hero a good hunt. In the dungeon, the protagonist stands in front of a group of small monsters. He then summons a firestorm. A huge blaze bursts from his hand, wiping out the creatures. That was a good addition to his arsenal. As expected from a rare rank area skill, it gets even better when paired with a shield of the same level. Maybe it won't be as reliable in higher level areas, but in these dungeons, pray broken. Suddenly his shield and arm are slashed. A stranger compliments the protagonist's awareness. Troy Hansung asks who he is. The man seems a little surprised not to be recognized, but since he thinks it'll make things more interesting, he decides to reveal his identity. He is Young Sunwoo, formerly known as the vice leader of Suwon. Assassin says that in a way he's getting revenge, because there's only one person Young can take his anger out on, and that person is Choi Hansu. Our hero yells, asking if Young really thinks he'll get away with this, but the former vice leader explains that shouting won't help. He activated an item that blocks sight and sound in the area. On top of that, he's purposely wearing bad armor to avoid suspicion. This way anyone would think he's just a newbie who hasn't even reached level 50. Zhang forged an identity, but he doesn't care. His plan is to leave the country by the end of the day. He's going to use a fake passport for that. Zhang says he even considered attacking the protagonist's family. He knows what it feels like to lose everything, but they were being guarded. Troy Kansan gets very angry hearing that. Young says he could have taken out the guards too, but then escaping from Korea would have been harder. So he came straight for Troy Kansan in a dungeon. If the body disappears, it'll take a while for anyone to notice. In the meantime, Young notices something. He realizes the protagonist's recovery speed is really fast. Young says he had already noticed that. He was just stalling for time. But he doesn't believe he can lose this fight. Troy Kunsa then realizes he might die. Both clash their blades midair. The protagonist is thrown backward. Young admits he didn't expect to be blocked. He was planning to cut off one of our hero's arms, so he wouldn't regenerate anymore. Shui Kunsen opens his portal, grabbing the werewolf's heart. Young recognizes it as a transformation item, but he scoffs at it. Choi Kinsung transforms quickly, and the former vice leader acknowledges that. His stats increase a lot. But then, the wolf turns and runs in the opposite direction. Then he jumps onto the wall and prepares a fire spell, exploding where Zhong was standing. The smoke keeps him from seeing what happened, but his pursuer appears behind him. Young asks our hero if he really thought he could escape. The former vice leader grabs him from behind, but before he can stab him, Choi Hyun soon manages to push him away. Once again, the protagonist conjures another fireball and threatens him with it. With a simple movement, Young dodges the spell, but Troy Hunsum takes the opportunity to jump on him. Young blocks the attack with his blade, and even looks like he's enjoying himself. Troy Hunsum starts to believe it might be possible. Young swiftly moves to the side and lands a flurry of sword strikes on the wolf's back, but he turns quickly to crush him, only to find no one there. Young admits that the protagonist is truly impressive, but then he asks Choi Kunsen if he knows his nickname. His sword becomes charged with electricity. Young says he used to be called the Lightning Blade. The ex-vice lifts his hand and hurls a bolt of lightning at the protagonist, paralyzing him with a shock. Matheny takes the chance to fulfill his promise. Young says if Choi Khan's son had obtained him from the start, he would have used him well. For that even, 100 billion or trillions wouldn't have been a waste. The wolf recovers and turns to attack, but he takes another hit and collapses. His heels are slashed. Joan takes a shot and asks how our hero managed to break the 20-level rule, or at least how he got so strong so quickly. Choi Kinsang yells at him to shut up, but Joan promises to spare his life if he tells him. Of course, the protagonist doesn't believe it, so the ex-vice leader makes another promise to give him a painless death that he might believe. Then Young starts cutting Choi Hyunseong again. Apparently, regeneration isn't doing well under these conditions. In fact, it's pretty bad for him. He might stay like this forever, especially against a rookie like this one. Choi Kunsung is in extreme pain. He even starts to consider confessing and begs for it to end. Young continues slashing without stopping. Suddenly, he understands this guy wasn't just being vengeful. Shori Kinsatsu then screams to just end his life already, because he's not going to say anything. Jum agrees. It looks like he won't get anything out of him, since he'll need time to be free from the body. He decides, to give him a quick end just like he asked. Young then delivers the final blow. Now he needs to be free of the other parts too. Then something goes wrong. A hand just pierced through him. He doesn't understand a thing. Young falls lifeless. Choi Kansang is dragged until he finds his missing part and puts it back in place. Apparently Jum is still breathing, but only to be shocked by what he's seeing. His final vision is of Choi Hansen still alive. Then the barrier collapses along with Jum, and our hero returned to normal. Choi Kunsen never imagined being moved around without a head. Now he wonders what to do with Joan. He thinks it's best if no one knows what happened, not even the player association. Schrodinger believes that if it becomes public, others will question his skill level. The protagonist activates a fireball. There's no reason to reveal his secret right. Schrodinger burns the body of the former vice leader of Cyan. Suddenly, mana starts to gather. Apparently, not only monsters can trigger this. A skill book forms from the energy. Our hero walks over and picks it up. The spell is called Lightning Breath, with several bonuses, like paralyzing enemies and creating an electric field around the user. Best of all, it has no cooldown time. After learning the technique, Shuai Kenshin activates the power to test it. Immediately his body becomes energized. The protagonist summons a magic missile and blows up a boulder. His magic is much stronger now. His level has completely changed. On his status screen, it shows all his stats increased by 127. Also, he unlocks a title for defeating a player 100 levels above him. Then another achievement for beating someone 200 levels above. This time for 300 levels above. The protagonist wonders if now he could beat Joan. Easily, Shuai Hansan wants to become even stronger, but he'll have to put ranged skills aside. While Lightning Breath is active in the online store, a conversation begins. Where? A buyer feels ripped off by the price of batteries, and along with others who feel the same, organizes a boycott. 1 month later, Choi Kin-sung analyzes his store. He's deciding between 2 items to buy. One is a skill that allows him to sense the energy of living beings in danger around him. The other converts all his magic into vampiric energy, draining life from enemies. The protagonist can only afford one. Unfortunately, together, they cost over 60 billion. Choi Kan-sun decides to think it over a bit more. And by another day, our hero lies down and picks up the TV remote. He plans to enjoy his day off. Apparently, he's watching a news show about players. Choi Kan-sun is quite entertained watching TV in peace. This series was made for the 20th anniversary of the Cactus War. The protagonist remembers that time. On that day, everyone was on high alert, afraid of another incident. But just like the 10th anniversary, nothing happened. Though some reporters spread fake news about the number of dungeons decreasing, which caused an online argument. In the drama, the woman confesses her love to the guild master, but Cory Han's son goes back to thinking about which power he should buy. Benny feels a strong tremor. Our hero's confused by what just happened. Soon after, scream is heard. A portal is opened in the city, and monsters are attacking people. Orcs are taking over the streets. People run in terror. Shuai Kunsang jumps out of his bedroom window to save them. A girl is about to be caught, but the protagonist saves her just in time. Shuai Kunsang starts burning and slashing, attacking every creature he sees. Ahead of him, the citizens are terrified. From the portal, more orcs appear. Without wasting time, Choi Han-sun cast a flaming tornado, destroying that group of monsters. But it's not over yet. The monsters are way too close to the civilians. More and more monsters keep showing up, and the people don't stop getting attacked. Suddenly, a player appears. A group arrives to help those in danger. This player says he'll leave this portal to Choi Ken-san. Our hero thanks him. An emergency siren announces that martial law has been declared. Amidst the chaos, a child cries alone. The military also arrives to help. At that moment, the head of the association declares a law. He will mobilize all the players in the country. The images of destruction are catastrophic. In the middle of it all, Choi Kan-sung gets a call from Lee Shuai. She wants to know where he is. The protagonist says he's dealing with an ORC portal that opened on the street. His leader then asks for a report, and he says the monsters so far are weak, and other players are helping handle the situation. She then names an acting commander. Once the situation stabilizes, the order is to bring the players directly to Namyeon Station. There's another portal open there, and few people are handling it. Additionally, Lee says that our hero's family is safe. Apparently, they went to a bomb shelter along other families. Choi Kun-sung thanks her for caring. Now she wants him to give it everything. He's got in the fight, and that's exactly what he'll do. Shortly after, Choi Kun-sung says he doesn't have time to overthink it. The skill they'll choose is Vampire Mastery, which costs nearly 30 billion. So gallon this problem quickly and head to the station. The protagonist summons a wall of fire. In seconds, the orcs are incinerated. Choi Han-sung pulls out a microphone from his portal. Our hero announces that he's from the association too. He's trying to talk to the other players, but the chaos is overwhelming. Apparently, it's going to be very difficult. Once they regroup, Choi Kun-sung says he'll leave some players here to guard the portal, and the rest will go with him to the station. Quickly, the train station situation is resolved, and the protagonist just repeats the same order. One player has A. He wants to know how many portals have appeared. Number is uncertain, but there are reports of an opening all across the country. The fear this information causes is clear on their faces, and that worries our hero. Near Namjeong Station, new creatures appear attacking civilians. People are once again being attacked by monsters. One of the creatures standing guard didn't even see the hit coming. It's thrown far away before the monster can wake up. It's finished off with an axe strike, but this player knows he's in a tough spot. More and more monsters come out of the portal. Two other players are worried about the reinforcements. Arriving, that's when a giant blaze comes their way, wiping out all the monsters. The wall of flames is enormous. The hero asks the girls if they're okay, since reinforcements have arrived. Because of that, the other players celebrate that they are no longer alone. One of his men considers that region complicated, since there aren't many dungeons. There are only a few players in the city. Choi Kim-sum tells him to forget that and focus on helping people. Suddenly, a terrifying roar. A new creature emerges from the portal, and this time the protagonist becomes worried. Judging by its size, the monster is much stronger than the others. Shorikanza needs to finish this fight quickly. The protagonist hurls a fire spear at it. Then he jumps onto the monster, and both miss their strike. But our hero doesn't find the creature that strong. After all, then, with a single blow, he finishes the fight. But more roars come from the portal. That monster wasn't a boss. It was just an evolved creature. And now several of them are emerging. Choi Kansang summons a flaming tornado, but this time it doesn't work. The creature's fire resistance is too high. The protagonist calls for a shield. Then he charges forward. He immediately starts beating them down, slashing the creatures the old-fashioned way. For a moment, Choi Kansang is distracted by a spear. That wasn't really there. And one of the monsters grabs his arm, then his legs, leaving him trapped. The spear comes straight toward his face, causing an explosion. Choi Kansung is alive, but under the effect of ice. The creature in front of him is massive, far stronger than the rest. The protagonist assumes this must be the Lizard Man King, so he drops his shield, keeping only his sword. The monster conjures several ice spears. The spells fly toward our hero, who runs to avoid getting hit. At the same time, other monsters attack him. One charging ahead is sliced down. But right behind its body, there was a waiting spear. Choi Hun's son conjures a fire shield to protect himself. Then he jumps onto the boss, which casts a spell, a close-range breath attack. The magic is powerful and devastating. Choi Hanshu knows he can't afford to save mana now. He activates lightning breath immediately after. He vanishes like a bolt, but the boss manages to defend against his strike. Other lizard men come to assist their king. Choi Hun-san has to hold them off no matter what. Not many players can fight a monster of this level. He fears what could happen to the others. The creatures surround him to attack all at once. On the other hand, it's good to know he's the main focus of the battle. Choi Han-sung unleashes a lightning attack, hitting everyone around him while they're paralyzed. They're all destroyed. Each of them goes down with a one-hit kill. An hour later, the other players are speechless. Now only the king is left. It's time to finish this. The monster charges without fear. Choi Han-sung leaps onto him. Amazingly, he still gets scratched. The king then appears behind him. The protagonist quickly counters the attack, slashing the monster's face. The creature drops to its knees, lifeless. Choi Kun-sing is completely out of energy too. The monster's body dissolves into mana. All he wants now is a good reward for all that effort. The mana turns into a skill book. Luckily, it's a rare rank. The power allows him to cast Freezing Breath, and the protagonist decides to learn it later. The heroes are helping people retreat. Schwartzman's life and mana are starting to return to normal, but he's still exhausted. Suddenly he hears something. A man lying on the ground is taken down by someone. The army is clearing the area and securing the train station. Apparently, there was still one stray man hiding, but it's over for now. His mission is complete for today. 3 days later, with the second catastrophe, the world's economy froze. Water, food, and electricity became scarce. In Korea, defense networks were built in major areas, and small towns were evacuated. However, that led to a breakdown in the distribution of goods, causing industries to be unable to produce anything. Everything the protagonist had listed for sale is now gone, which means he can't sell anything at the moment. Now it will be harder to grow stronger. It's time for people to recover from the catastrophe, so shops can reopen. A helicopter flies over the city. The pilot reports that they've arrived. They've decided to surround the outermost regions and gradually shrink the perimeter. Other players are preparing to descend. Joy Hansons asks if they're familiar with their designated areas, and the team confirms they are. Each group will have a leader in command, and the first to go in is Choi Kansung. Some giant creatures come out of the portal. The protagonist is in free fall, and he descends with a wall of fire. The creatures that just arrived are instantly fried. The rest meet their end by our hero's blade. It's a one-hit kill for each of them. At the same time, other heroes join the battle. For now, everything is under control. Another monster runs out of the portal, excited to destroy, but our hero doesn't even give it a chance. However, other monsters are crossing through his fire barrier. Something strange is happening, but the trolls are heading in another direction. Apparently, they're fleeing, but Choi Kunsen can't let that happen. He activates Lightning Breath. Then comes the Flaming Spear. Things just got even easier for the protagonist. Choi Kunsen moves like a bolt of lightning. He then blasts the troll's face. Our hero grabs another fire spear and heralds it at another fleeing monster. That was the 15th troll, apparently the last one too. Suddenly, something appears. A monster that showed up out of nowhere in this area. This creature shouldn't be here, because it's at least level 400. The creature warms in rage. This is one of the highest ranked monsters known, the heroic ranked Blue Dragon. Lee comments that it would be great if the battle was over. Already there are at least 100 million players, but only around 5,000 are high level, and they're running out of resources. Meanwhile, the military is managing the areas where mid-level monsters are appearing. But the trend is that more and more high-level creatures will show up, and the number of players able to deal with them is scarce. An emergency report arrives. According to the sources, a new portal has opened in the capital. Lee wants to know what kind of monster is this time. The report says it's a herd of wyverns. These are heroic rank creatures. Lee asked for confirmation that the Tyus Guild is in that region. Her team confirms that they are, but they're requesting reinforcements. That guild consists mostly of tanks and warriors, so they're struggling against those creatures. Lee asks if there's anyone nearby who can help, and they locate a group of mages in the area. The leader gives the order for them to assist. The other guild. More reports of new portals are coming in. Arbias are attacking in another region, and where there were orcs. Now ogres are emerging too. Another report arrives about a blue dragon in Ozensai. Lee remembers that Choi Kansam is in that region. The staff confirms it, and use the one requesting reinforcements. Let in. Orders that all players in that area be evacuated. A staff rushes to report this. Choi Hansong asks if help is on the way, and he receives an order to retreat. As he's making his escape, a chunk of building flies off and is torn from his place. The order is everyone must evacuate the area, but Choi Ham Sun feels it's wrong to leave all this behind. Then the building collapses on top of him. The massive dragon just watches curious. Our hero managed to dodge in time, but he's already hit again by the creature. The giant hand crashes into the ground. Luckily, the protagonist hides inside a house. Choi Kenshin finds it odd that he's the only one being chased. When the protagonist looks, he's shocked. The dragon is face to face with him, and the creature comes in to bring everything down. Half the building is thrown into the air, tossed like a toy. The massive creature seems to be just playing. Joy. Kansang tries to counterattack with a flaming tornado. Not giving up, he tries again, throwing an explosion at the monster's face. Troy Hansen uses the chance to retreat, but the monster doesn't waste time and comes charging at him quickly. He prepares a spell creating an ice barrier. The protagonist slides beneath the barrier and dodges the giant strike, but he's already wondering how long this coat will hold. How Choi Han-sun has no choice but to fight, so he activates lightning breath. Our hero is going to try something. Right before its eyes, Choi Han-sun vanishes and reappears striking at the dragon's scales, but has no effect. The monster then lands a blow on him, leaving him disoriented. Immediately after another strike comes. Chuishin's son tries to block it with his sword, but he's thrown backward. This monster's scales are extremely tough, but it must have a weak spot. The protagonist charges forward as fast as he can, this time the target in mind. He tries to slash the monster's stomach. Again, it doesn't work. Right after he's nearly crushed, the dragon doesn't even have a scratch. The creature warms in fury. Once again, the dragon tries to hit him, but our hero is faster. Something strange happens to the protagonist. His electricity is being drained by the dragon. All this energy is being siphoned away. It's as if Choi Han-sun is taking damage, to the point that he falls from the sky. The protagonist is on the ground injured. When he looks up, the dragon is about to devour him. Suddenly, everything goes dark. Our hero is inside the monster's stomach. He is semi-conscious, thinking that it can end like this. His family depends on him. Corey Kansung is clinging to his broken sword. This time our hero has hit rock bottom. He stabs the sword into the creature's flesh. Our hero realizes something is happening. His blade is being fueled, and he's slowly recovering. The immortality book has evolved to heroic rank. The protagonist knows he's never been in worse shape, but he can't stay like this. He starts eating the dragon's raw flesh. On the outside, Lee receives the news that Choi Kun-sun has died. It's the intelligence members who confirm it. She is in shock, since she was the one who gave the order for everyone to retreat. The problem is, Choi Kun-sun was the one tasked with sealing the portal, so when the dragon appeared, he was the closest. The girl says he even tried to fall back, but he couldn't. Lee can barely hide her sorrow. She then asks that his family has already been informed. Unfortunately, no official note was sent, but there is the online CoverGo list. So they assume, yes, the family knows. Inside the stomach, the protagonist falls from the flesh wall. He loses consciousness for a moment, but when he wakes up, he's glad to have at least regained his health. Now he's going to make use of all the blood around him. First he makes some cuts. Then he begins to absorb energy. But the protagonist feels a tremor. The monster's stomach is moving. To keep from falling, he uses his blade to anchor himself in the flesh. Our hero is hanging by just one arm. He wonders what's happening on the outside. The great dragon is howling in pain. Not even the players understand what's going on to them. The creature suddenly started thrashing. The monster is screaming in agony. It even smacks its tail into nearby buildings. Suddenly, a player sees a building falling on top of her. Her partner tries to help. At the last second, all that's visible is the impact. Choi Han-sun has found what he needed. He found the main artery. The protagonist leaps and activates the flaming blade. With that, he manages to cut the artery from inside the creature. Its screaming can be heard. The protagonist clings to the edge of the artery. Now he starts recovering even faster. Shorty Han-sun takes advantage and unleashes multiple attacks. This time he moves on his own 2 feet until he reaches the heart. Our hero simply stabs the organ to be sure. He makes more cuts until it explodes into pieces. His blade begins to absorb all the creature's mana. That's when he receives several updates. The immortality rank increases, along with lightning breath, which evolves into lightning dragon breath. This time the names of the skills change. On top of that, he gains a title for hunting a monster, 200 levels above his own. His vampire blade is also restored, and changes to draconic bloodblade. Then something else appears. A skill book forms in front of him. This one grants a major boost to the user's physical resistance. Kraken-sen has just gained another incredible power. The girl has no idea what just happened. Suddenly, the blue driving collapsed. First, it started thrashing. Then it began writhing until finally it felt lifeless. One of the players wonders if it was struck by some disease. But his friend doesn't believe that could happen to dragons. Suddenly something appears where a monster once was. A helicopter is headed to the new location. Inside, the players are already hoping for a break after this hunt. But in the back, there's someone who doesn't want to talk. She can't process what happened. Lee can't believe the association is trying to claim the contract. Breach Fee, one of the men, tells her to calm down. Besides the young man being dead, they're currently in a crisis. That's why they want to reduce their losses. But she can't believe they're even human. Lee begins to lose control. Her energy starts pushing everyone in that room. She's wondering if they would have done the same thing if it were her. The man begs her to stop. He gives in and says he'll drop the idea. That's why she's lost in her thoughts. An emergency message arrives. She tells the guy to speak. According to a report, the blue dragon is dead. One of the players asks if it was a group that did it, but as far as everyone knows, there's no one available. Who could have pulled that off? There are reports that the player who was swallowed is alive. He attacked the dragon from the inside. Lee wants that person's name. The man replies it's Troy Gunson. In that moment, she lights up with joy. Choi Kenshin drinks an entire bottle of water. He's relieved to be fully healed. A player offers him some clothes. At that moment, Choi Kenshin remembers something. He asks to borrow a phone. The protagonist wants to call his family. The one who offers help is the girl. Shui Kenshin then makes the call. Someone answers with a cautious tone. The protagonist tells his mother it's her son. She stays silent for a while. Then she asks if it's true it's really him. Shui Kenshin says he saw his name on a list of deceased players, but that was a mistake. He was fine the whole time. He asked about his sister and father, but she starts crying. During the call, our hero tries to tell viewers no need for that. He really is okay. Corey Consum says he's eating well, staying warm. His mother then says she's so happy to hear that he's alive. She also tells him someone from the association visited her and gave compensation for what happened. The woman couldn't say anything, only that she was sorry and felt it was her fault. In the end, she's just happy it wasn't true. His mother is incredibly happy that he's alive. Choi Kun-sin doesn't know what to say when the call ends. He tries to hide his tears. The girl then offers him a tissue. Corey Kun-san gladly accepts it. After everything, our hero sits on the sidewalk now, then wants to see how much his blade has changed. This time it has several new effects, like a huge mana boost. But there's something special. It now has a linked item. Of course it can evolve too, as long as it drinks blood from a draconic creature. Most likely, the protagonist won't need new weapons anytime soon. Now he checks the electric dragon breath, which gives him even more lightning powers. At least Troy Hun's son managed to evolve the skill. This time, he sees that all his attributes increase by 30 points, and he also gets a magic bonus. Nam's concern is finding out when they'll bring him real clothes. Troy Hun's son just wants to go home. Suddenly something is falling from the sky, and it's coming down like a missile. The protagonist recognizes it's his leader. She lands and immediately hugs him, very relieved to see he's alive. Our hero is happy to see her too, but Lee notices he's not wearing clothes. Even Troy Hun's son gets embarrassed. He explains that his clothes melted because of the acid. Our hero finally receives a change of clothes. Lee is still a bit flustered. A player approaches her and says he witnessed a touching reunion, but then he adds he's surprised. She asks surprised about what? The player says he didn't expect she'd be into younger guys. He didn't imagine that kid was a secret boyfriend. Lee tells him to stop with the jokes. He says he'll follow that order. The leader explains that she canceled the mission, so she wants to know why they're there. A mage says that after witnessing that scening, she got very curious and wanted a closer look. Then the girl gives the protagonist a good look and says he's her type and wants to know if he's dating anyone. But Lee removes her hand. She tells him to stop with the jokes. Choi Kan-sung just went through a difficult time, but the girl says she's not joking. She also says she doesn't understand why the leader is angry. Lee insists that Choi Kan-sung means to rest right now. The leader admits that. Everyone there is curious about how the protagonist defeated the dragon alone, but in her opinion asking that is really rude. Then Lee tells the boy to go to the hospital. Of course he agrees. Besides, her helicopter will be used for another purpose. They'll serve as an emergency transport. Lee then jumps, taking Choi Kun-sen with her. Even though she's a little frustrated, she admits she was kind of rude too. But without a doubt, she's curious about how the protagonist managed to melt the blue dragon. The other guy assumes that this man must be special, just by the way he's treated. He decides he'll just ask her about it later. On the online forum, people are desperate to buy Choi Kim-seng's products, so much so that they blamed the person who suggested the boycott in the first place. The anger is so intense that now they want to suspend the account of the one who started the boycott, since the protagonist won't read those messages because of his low profile. Sometime later, Korea suffered a lot, but they still managed to contain the catastrophe with relatively minimal damage. In a short time, they began to restore infrastructure. Then they started researching the new magic stones. Even though their society was a bit unstable, things started to return to normal. Choi Kun-sen takes a good look at his battery inventory. Fortunately, that market wasn't too badly affected. As soon as the storefront reopened, recharging batteries became his top priority. Choi Hun-sung says he's going to buy all of them. The protagonist adds the batteries to the cart to sell. Then he decides to raise the prices of the items. Somehow people are still buying. Our hero can hardly believe it. Since that's the case, he decides to raise the prices even more. A few days later, Choi Hun-sung returns to the store, but they're still out of stock. The clerk says more will arrive soon. Since the factories are back in operation, there probably won't be this kind of problem anymore. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done for now. Choi Hun-sam says he'll head out. Then the vendor offers to call them when the batteries arrive. But the protagonist says he'll just come back later. On the way back, he thinks it would be perfect. He could buy directly from the factory. Corey Conson even tried contacting them before the catastrophe, but they refused to make individual sales. Later, the protagonist called again and said he would make bulk purchases, but the company still refused. Our hero wonders if he'll need to buy a company and a warehouse. Maybe it's better to open an electronics store. A few days later, Choi Han-sun goes shopping. Even though it's a weekday, the place is still crowded. His sister calls out to him. Choi Han-sun praises his manager's leadership. She says she has to give her best effort for his store. His manager informs him that the batteries were sent to a warehouse. The protagonist says he'll go check it out. Then afterwards, she asks if she should place more orders. But that will change from time to time. His sister invites him to dinner with her mother. This time, they'll be able to eat something fancy. Apparently, sales are slowing down. Their sales rate has practically stopped. But at least the week was good. Maybe it's time to start spending points now. And the protagonist thinks. He looks at what he's going to buy. Currently, he has 5 heroic type skills. But Dragon Breath is the only active one. But thinking it through, that's also the only tank type power he has. Troy Hansen wonders if he should buy one. More active ability, or maybe something like teleportation, to always escape danger. Actually, our hero could buy both. Active skills are cheaper than passive ones. But Choi Kong-sen notices. Teleportation powers are expensive. He remembers that personal space is. Storage ability was pretty expensive too. Also, only heroic rank ones can move living beings. There are other restrictions too. But at least he can read about the products. The protagonist finds the best one available, which costs 40 billion points. And that's the one he buys. After that, Choi Hun-sun goes to the warehouse. The protagonist is thinking about testing the skill. Now he targets a corner of the place. Before he even finishes saying teleport, the boy is already there. They work perfectly this time, and it's actually very useful. Then he tests the long-distance version. Now he's going to buy the other ability. He looks through the elemental powers, but none catches his eye. Suddenly, he finds a dark magic spell that fires a beam, assuming both life and mana. On top of that, the price is surprisingly good. One comment warns that if you're not careful, you might drain your own life without realizing it. But that's exactly the one he wants. However, Dragon Breath absorbs this power and evolves into unique, heroic rank. Nam's electricity has turned into black lightning. Even his electric barrier has changed, so that he can control it. The protagonist decides to go into a dungeon. Corey Kenshin heads to a cave. Some creatures rush toward him. The monsters get very close. He then fires the lightning beam. Only monster mana remains. The protagonist thinks the new attack is amazing. Spending all his points was worth it. 5 hours later, he manages to hunt 5,000 monsters. But now Awakens is completely exhausted. That's it for today, folks. At the end of the day, the protagonist goes to his shop. There he finds his sister, who should have gone home already. She says the batteries are in the storage room, and he can both check. Awakens goes to take a look. 30 minutes later, he returns, and his sister is still there. He says they can go home together then, but she wants to talk to him first. That's why she's still at the shop. She wants to talk about what happened. When they thought Choi-Han-san had died, his sister starts by saying their mother had a breakdown when she received the notification. And even after learning he was safe, she cried for a long time. But the real problem came afterward. That's when they were fined for the rented equipment and had their contract canceled. Choi-Kun-sang is devastated when he hears that. His sister says they filed several complaints, but the response was that the law was on their side. They were asked to hold an inheritance meeting. Even the lawyers said there was nothing they could do. In the end, they had to leave the house. That was in the protagonist's name. They demanded the bonus Choi Han-sun had received be returned. But in the end, everything got resolved. Lee Shui fixed the whole situation, apologized on her knees, and said it was all a misunderstanding. But his sister doesn't believe. It was just a misunderstanding. Choi Kung-song promises to investigate the story. She says it wasn't meant to be a secret, but she wanted him to know what happened. The protagonist thanks her for her honesty. The next day, Choi Han-sung says he has a meeting with Captain Lee Shui. The secretary says she's out at the moment. The protagonist says he spoke to her earlier by phone, and she allowed him to wait in her office. Since that's the case, the girl guides her hero to the room. In the office, she can offer some coffee, but he declines, and after that the secretary leaves. Finally, he is alone. Shorty Han-sung activates his psychometry ability. He searches for his own name. The protagonist sees the moment. She received confirmation of his death. It's clear that she was very upset. He even feels a bit moved. Then the protagonist sees her arguing with her boss about what he's doing to the hero's family. The man's response is that he's just following the law. Lee tells the man to drop the charges, but he refuses. To her, someone who died protecting the country should be treated with more respect. The man on the phone says he's just acting according to protocol. Lee says that if he doesn't cancel the charges, she will immediately leave the organization. He says that would be a breach of contract. But the captain says her contract is so unusual, it might not even be legally valid. The man then doubts. She would actually go against the Korean government. He says she's too emotional and they'll talk later. The person she was talking to was the minister. Choi Kun-san sincerely gives thanks. Now he knows who he's dealing with. The Minister of Dimensional Affairs is finished. Lee then appears and asks if he waited long, but actually he arrived very early. She says she got curious because he wanted to meet her so suddenly. Choi Han-sun says he'll have to cancel his contract. Lee is speechless, but the protagonist reveals that he knows what the minister tried to do. She apologizes on his behalf, but Corey Konsum says it's not necessary, since he knows she was the one who fixed everything. In the end, that's why the protagonist wants to thank her. Lee asks him to reconsider for her sake. She still wants to fight to change that regulation. The protagonist agrees that it must happen, and then says he might reconsider if she does him a favor. Choi Konsum wants to meet the minister in person, to apologize directly. Naturally, the girl is shocked, but the one who gets most nervous is the minister, who calls the boy arrogant. He thinks the kid is too full of himself, just because he has unique abilities. The minister says he doesn't even know what he did wrong. One of his staff members says Troy Kansam is just a brat who doesn't know how the world works. That's why the other one also agrees that the request should be denied. According to the minister, he was only following the law. He doesn't understand why he has to apologize. After all, from his point of view, he did nothing wrong. His subordinate agrees. He thinks the minister was generous, and now the boy is just throwing a tantrum. So they believe they should teach him a lesson. For a moment, the minister even agrees. But he wants to know how that would be done, especially since everyone already knows about this. That's when his staff are left speechless. In the end, they get scolded for saying things without thinking. Then the old man orders the protagonist to come to him. Since Troy Konsum wants an apology, then he should be the one to come. The two fools run off to deliver the message. The minister says he would never go to him. Schrödinger finds it funny that he was summoned here. But in the end, it's the minister who's going to be late. The protagonist uses his new ability and discovers that this is where corrupt officials teamed up with major guilds and dungeon gate managers. At least all the staff members are just regular people. But for our hero, that's actually better. The secretary appears and says, "The minister is calling for him." Our hero is ready for this. As soon as he enters the room, the old man is surprised by his appearance. He says our hero is the same age as his grandson. The minister begins a speech about youth, but the protagonist interrupts him. He wants to hear the apology. Meanwhile, he uses his psychomathy. The old man says he was only acting according to the rules, and there was nothing he could do. Corey Kaminson discovers that the minister was conspiring with many others against him then. The minister says he just wanted to do things by the book, but the protagonist asks if he hasn't done things far too awful to be considered legal. First, there's the issue of a fine for rented equipment used during a company mission. Then there's the cancellation fee for the contract. Corey Han-sun has been officially declared killed in action during a mission. The protagonist demands to know how that makes any sense. He wants to know what's going through the minister's mind when he did all that. Unfortunately, the minister is outraged to be scolded by a kid, but he started it says Troy Kunson and calls him an idiot. Immediately, the minister is furious, shouting out his official title. He says, "Our hero is just a brat who doesn't know anything." The minister keeps yelling at him, insulting him as poor and inferior. He can't accept being treated this way by a boy. Growing impatient, Jolly Konsum starts to think he should just get rid of him. Right then the minister freezes. The man ends up wetting his pants in fear. Troy Hunson tells him to have some common sense and think before he speaks. The staff who are watching everything stay dead silent. The protagonist reminds him that his head isn't just for decoration. Then he says he recorded everything that was said. They'll file a police report and press charges for verbal assault. Choi Kansen will be waiting for him in court. When he leaves the room, all you can hear is a scream of despair. The protagonist finds this new ability more useful than he expected and lose self-control. A few days later, a corruption scandal involving the minister was revealed. The movement started with regular players, but over time, even guilds joined the fight. Troy Hunsam is relaxing at home, which allows him to read the memory of objects. While he's thinking that, they'll be using this power a lot in the future. His leader calls him. It seems he didn't expect it to be her, but he answers the phone happily. She wants to meet with him, and Troy Hunsam says that's fine by him. In that case, she asks for his location. Troy Hunsam asks for just a second. He sees the name of a restaurant near his apartment. The protagonist then recommends it to her, and Lee accepts, saying she's already on her way there. The girl will arrive in 30 minutes. She's going to be direct. Lee wants to know if the scandal with the minister was orchestrated by him. She already suspects he's the only one who could pull something like that off. The commander says, "Government officials are quite sensitive about this issue." Lee tells him they'll be suspicious of the protagonist, so he needs to be careful. Shuishin wants to find out what could happen. His leader says he could be arrested for trespassing and theft. The protagonist wants to know if it could be even worse because of the special laws for players. Lee says that if it comes to that, he'd better have public opinion on his side. Corey Kansung thinks that's good advice, but since he's not a criminal, he doesn't have anything to worry about. Lee once again asks him to be careful. She says high-ranking officials don't like players with power and influence, but for now they'll stay quiet and cautious. Also, they'll gain many new enemies. And of course, they'll keep a close watch on Choi Kansen. The protagonist denies it. and says he has nothing to do with the situation, but he decides to stay quiet for a while. Lee laughs, saying that's actually a smart idea. It's better for both of them, to avoid unnecessary suspicion. A missile is launched toward its target. This is Pyongyang in North Korea. The soldier hopes the target was destroyed, but Creature's voice says no, and the monster warms and slime pours from its mouth. The soldiers turn to skeletons in seconds. The ability doesn't stop. It keeps spreading, melting everything in its path, not even if fighter jet escapes. The city is completely destroyed. Back at the cafe, Lise says she has to leave, but she's not the only one receiving that message. Tori cans and goes with her. The message is an emergency summons, only for high-level players. Lisa's special code was issued, so she'll contact headquarters first. Choi Kun-sung says the internet already knows what's going on. North Korea has collapsed, and the monster that caused it could come to this country. This is more serious than he imagined. The spokesperson confirms the situation is indeed grave. According to the information, the neighboring country is gone, and all high-level players in North Korea fail to stop the creature called emoji. Plus, hordes of monsters keep emerging from portals. Many refugees are arriving at the borders, and the monsters are getting closer and closer. The head of the organization takes over now. This time he's going to explain something else. Why only high-level players were summoned. Their mission is to defend the border from the emoji and drive back the monsters, advancing alongside at the front lines. And that last part doesn't sit well with the protagonist. 10 days later in Payu, a group of orcs is attacking. But at the border, there are already some players guarding it. This swordsman slices through monsters like cheese. Then he wonders how long he'll be stuck dealing with weaklings. Even the protagonist finds it boring. A werewolf leaps at him, but it's cut in two. Other players are in the same fight, all defending the border. But Choi Hansu wonders how much longer. Thanks to his sister, he's been receiving his supplies here. Still, it's uncomfortable no matter what. In China, a group of monsters is crossing a bridge. The military opens fire on them. A large red dragon begins crossing the river. Suddenly, an explosion wounds it. A group of players stops its advance. Another blast hits its chest, making the creature furious. Then a player slices it easily. The fight ends quickly. A soldier comes to speak with him. The intel is that the emoji is heading their way. The man looks pleased. The unranked creature that destroyed a North Korean city. A new update has just arrived. It still hasn't been possible to determine the monster's level, but they have discovered its rank, and it's a legendary creature. China's army is attacking with everything they've got. The idea is that whoever defeats the emoji will earn a first kill achievement, usually those who get that game. A huge boost in attributes. He wants to seize this opportunity. There at the border are more than 181 different ranks, over 3,000 high-level players. The emoji has finally arrived. Of course, the swordsman is the most excited. Everyone charges at once. A monk activates his ability to support the others. Magic rains down from all sides. But the creature grows tired of losing, paralyzing victims for up to 10 seconds. The players can't move Steven. They start getting eaten. Others are flung away by its tail. Some are so frightened they can't move a muscle. Emoji unleashes a lightning blast, wiping out a massive group. Choi Kun-sung is watching the news on his phone. It's reported that a disaster occurred at the Chinese border. The thousands of high-level players killed. The protagonist was thinking about getting the wild instinct ability, but he changed his mind and chose something with metal resistance because he wants the title for hunting that monster. In the end, he gets a heroic power that has only two, protecting the mind, increasing willpower. He pays the 29 billion points and agrees to learn it from her. At first, he doesn't feel anything different, so he'd like to test it and see how it works. Elsewhere, a man yells that he's being humiliated. Some players become curious about the scene. As the man is leaving, he realizes he's drawing attention. The other players are staring at him and judging him. In the end, he walks away with his head down. Choi Hun-sung thinks there are a lot of people applying, but the reason is simple. Everyone wants the chance to get the first kill. Achievement, although some are here for other reasons. But it seems the acceptance rate isn't very high. Choi Kan-sang is called by the secretary. First she checks his identity. Then she allows him to enter. The protagonist thinks this rune looks like it came straight out of a movie. Interrogation scene. A voice asks if he's ready for the test. Once grade to begin, everything goes silent. Suddenly a notification pops up. The message says, the protagonist has been affected by a mental ability, so he'll be confused for 10 seconds. And then his passive activates because of it. He resists the confusion effect. The test ends and a protagonist passes. After finishing, our hero leaves. The person on the other side admits, the protagonist is truly impressive. Ban Lee asked for the next candidate to be called. A few days later, near the DMZ, the South Korean government decides to advance north. A fighter jet reports it's entering the airspace. Then a ship launches a missile. It hits a blue dragon on the shoulder, bringing the creature down. So far, everything's going well. The combination of players and the military is working out. That region is filled with creatures. The monsters charge into battle, but the players handle them easily. 1 week later in Beijing, China, they're discussing how the leaders want them to defeat. The emoji, the mountain erupts in flames. A politician wants to summon Beijing's top-tier heroes, but Anota thinks it's a rushed decision. What if another legendary monster appears? One of the politicians doesn't understand why their heroes couldn't take down that creature. He's certain that gathering the best of the best will be enough. They'll definitely succeed. The emoji lets out a fierce roar, terrifying the players. Then the creature begins its massacre. The survivors are receiving healing treatment. Not for long. The creature destroys everything in its path. A tight player protects his teammates. Those still standing launch a coordinated attack. But the monster creates an air barrier with a roar, pushing away the nearby players. In the end, they lost. Someone asks for a survivor, count only about 10 remain. The leader activates Plan B. Shields are placed on the ground. Arrows are raised. Those who can't fight alone are supported. A new rain of attacks falls on the monster. The leader gives the order for them to move toward Korea. Choi Han-song sees the news that the emoji is heading towards central China. Our hero thinks he won't be able to get the title, and others are thinking the same thing. In fact, everyone looks disappointed. Suddenly, the CAF starts shaking. It feels like an earthquake is happening. A woman announces that the emoji is charging toward them, and everyone must prepare for battle. The players are confused by this sudden change, but others are thrilled. They'll get the chance to hunt the creature. No one is more excited than Choi Hansen. He's dying to earn that achievement. But the girl says there's nothing to be happy about. The Chinese lost the fight again. The survivors are the ones bringing the creature to Korea. That was their desperate plan. One of the players gets furious when he hears this, so even think it should be a crime. Tensions start to rise among the players. Lee intervenes and asks everyone to calm down. What matters most now is being ready for battle. Corey Kung's son is happy to see her. One of the Chinese players is running as fast as he can. The girl spots that they're close at the last second. The monster grabs him, swallowing the player in a single bite. The creature is enormous, bigger than they thought. Everyone grows tense when they see the monster head on. The emoji warms up all of them, unleashing its ability. But the protagonist's new powers allow him to withstand it perfectly. The battle begins, and the tanks charge forward. Warriors strike all over its body with their magical weapons. Elemental spells of all kinds rain down on its scales. Some players warn everyone to be careful, because a storm is swirling around the monster. A black lightning bolt hits the emoji. Choi Kan-sun feels stronger than ever, all thanks to the buffs. The plate responsible for them is focused on everyone in the group. A new team launches an attack, but these tanks and warriors aren't able to do much against the monster. The protagonist was placed in a long range damage group. The first injuries are starting to appear. Some players run over to help our hero, who will probably have to absorb the blood on the ground. But something else is happening too. He sees his friend fighting. Lee is so fast, it's hard to follow her with the eyes. She's the first to draw blood from the emoji. Choi Han-sun even feels a bit jealous of her. His only way to improve is by acquiring new abilities. All he wants is to reach 1 trillion points. And then his goal will be achieved. 30 minutes later, the fierce battle continues. Choi Han-sun thinks it's not as hard as he expected. Then he notices something strange. The monster begins to drool. The mage notices and shouts for everyone to be careful of a new attack. The creature releases acid from its mouth. Those nearby manage to dodge. But now it's heading toward the mages. Together, they try to form a protective barrier. Only one layer ends up breaking. The order is to keep channeling the barrier. All the mages give it their all. The tanks rush in to help. Together, they attack the monster, forcing it to stop the acid attack. Then the magic grain resumes, causing a huge explosion. The protagonist believes the battle is about to end, but Emoji is already losing its patience. The creature enters rage mode. It's a skill that lowers defense but boosts attack. The tanks go back into attack, but one of them is caught by some kind of effect. The player receives a new message. At the same time, everyone gets this update, a warning that the skill failed to activate. Another swordsman attacks as he passes by, but he notices something's going wrong. A warning's issued to dodge. The monster crushes an entire group. Unfortunately, the mage group is being massacred. Some players realize that. The monster is deliberately targeting them. Imuji keeps focusing its attacks on the group. Shari Kintsugi runs to escape the danger. He looks for a safe place, then activates teleportation. But then comes the numbing sensation that our hero is under a new effect from Iemu for 10 seconds, so his skills have been cancelled. The creature's roar is terrifying. It slams its tail down to hit Choi Han-sun. It was close. The creature is faster than he imagined. Another group of mages is paralyzed, and they're crushed by the monster. The protagonist opens a dimensional space. Imuji tries to crush him again. Our hero dodges just in time, but the monster doesn't give up with his body. It smashes the protagonist's shield, throwing him straight into a mountain. Our hero wakes up, is only slightly injured. But that was a close one. Shui Kamensung didn't expect the creature have another mental ability. Besides fear, the battlefield is chaos. But only now does the protagonist realize he lost his blade. He needs to find it before anything else. A new update appears. The Draconic Bloodblade has just evolved. Nadimar, a hero, believes it. He looks out the battlefield. Hoi Hun's son focuses his gaze until he spots his weapon stuck in the monster's tail, and he can't summon it back. The battle was going well, all things considered. You could already tell that victory is near. Another notification about the sword's evolution. Maybe it's because the blade is drinking the blood of a legendary monster. 2 other players leap to strike the monster's face, and they do serious damage. With each new hit, more blood spills from it. New blades pierce its flesh. Creature is losing, but it won't give up that easily. Imuji starts spitting acid again. Some players are nearly hit. They waste no time in counterattack. Lee rushes in and tears off one of its horns. The attacks are relentless. Lee and the mages return to the fight. Explosions erupt all over its body again. Imuji changes its stance. Lee is the first to notice. She jumps as fast as she can, kicking the monster in the chin for the first time. Imuji falls. The players waste no time and drive their blades into its body. One of the players starts to believe they've won. Then comes everyone receives the title for hunting a legendary monster together. The players celebrate across the battlefield. Imuji begins to vanish, turning into pure mana. But then they notice something. The mana is being drawn toward a specific point. That point is our hero's sword. The blade is just taken on new form. The protagonist recovers his sword. He then receives a new update, a title for being the first person to own a legendary weapon in history. Choi Kan-san wants to see how much it has changed. The new skill says you can unleash a draconic blood attack for a legendary rank. It sounds very impressive. Troy Hunson also didn't know that. Unique rank achievements were classified separately. It means there are also players out there with unique items. In the end, the protagonist is satisfied. Another message. He receives a reward for helping defeat the monster, which varies for each player. Choi Kun-sen came in first, so all his attributes increased by 10. Our hero has his sword to thank for that. But now he wonders how he's going to split the reward. The money is distributed based on each person's contribution to the battle, but the protagonist doesn't want to reveal his level. To anyone, he makes his decision. Choi Kun-sen is happy with what he already has. The news of the emoji's defeat caused a stir. The whole world was watching Korea, who participated in how the monster was defeated and what the rewards were. Became topics of curiosity everywhere, but the government took measures to keep everything under wraps. Even so, item sale requests kept flooding in. Many players went to Korea. After that, the drive to earn new achievements and become the strongest became a craze. A few days later, Choi Kan-sung is in his shop's storage room. The protagonist realizes that buying the auction items will be difficult. He'd received a reward for joining the expedition and an invitation to take part in the item auction, but the expectation is that prices will reach the billions. In the end, Choi Kan-sung decides not to participate. He already has what he needs. Then he gets a call from Lee Shui. The guy is surprised and asks if something happened. His companion asks if there always has to be a reason for her to call him. Choi Kun-sen gets a little embarrassed, but says that she usually only contacts him when something's going on. Lee laughs and says it's true. She actually wants to ask something. She wants to know if he's interested in the legendary rank item. His answer is obviously yes. Who wouldn't be? Lee says she can go ahead and buy one for him. At the emoji auction, Koi Hun-sun asks if she wants something in return, and of course she does. She makes that clear, and it's not hard to guess what she wants. A slavery contract, as Choi Kun-sen called it. Lee explains that the government is going all in to acquire the emoji items, and probably no player has more money than they do. But the protagonist finds that strange, because only those who join the expedition can take part in the auction. That's why she's talking to our hero. Only the two of them fought the monster, a part of the association. Troy Handsome then asks why she doesn't just buy all the items. Lee replies that she would, but one of the abilities is more compatible with him than with her. Because of that, the protagonist wants to see the items first, before continuing the conversation. She says that everyone will only get to see auction items one day in advance. It's definitely a very short time. Lee explains that the government is afraid that if they reveal what's up for sale too early, someone might try to steal it. The protagonist bets that's already happening, but he decides he'll only make a decision after seeing what's for sale. Lee promises you won't regret it. A few days later, Choi Kan-sang is holding the list in his hands. The name is Dark Dragons. Pierce has almost no side effects and is a skill that basically controls a black lightning bolt freely, with no cooldown. Our hero wonders if his heroic rank power can absorb a legendary. Level 1. He asks if she really doesn't want that ability. Lee says that almost all of her abilities use divine-type mana. His friend tells him that if he doesn't want the power, it will go to some random mage. The government already has someone in mind. They want to give the book to. That's why they don't have much time. Troy Hunza needs to decide now. He agrees on one condition, that in the future, he can pay a fee to terminate the lifelong contract. Lee thinks that's a bit much. Troy Han-sung says that if he can't, he'll back out. Lee agrees if she can add interest. The protagonist is almost afraid to hear how much it will be, but she says it's 5%. A seemingly simple rate, but it's compound interest. That's the best she can offer him. So Troy Han-sung accepts the terms. Lee says it's settled. Then now she'll report to the higher UPS. And the protagonist thanks her. But the girl says she didn't do anything special. The auctioneer asks for any more bids. He begins counting to 5. The room is small, and the man counts to 5 for anyone to make a new offer. Then it's declared that player Lee will take the Dark Dragon's spear. The final bid was over 1 billion. It was more competitive than expected. Jui Hin-son can't imagine a player having that kind of money. Apparently, there are some corporations backing certain individuals. The skill book and the weapon together total 2 trillion. Now it's time for the final item. A staff member brings it to the stage. The book with the fury of the dark dragon. Later, the protagonist is alone reviewing his contract. Maybe a bit of regret is setting in. Today he has to pay. Reaches 1 trillion with compound interest. He might actually stay tied to the association. For life, Lee is facing another problem. The first conquest message didn't show up, as she expected. She believes something is off. During the expedition, the title, for being the first person with a historical rank, didn't appear, and she came in second in contribution. Also, no one revealed who placed first. When she hunted the first heroic monster, it was different. They managed to record who ranked first. Lee received the achievement of being the first to gain something of that rank. Unfortunately, she just didn't receive the titles because she didn't have the right accessories. But she thought it would be the same this time, unless someone had already killed a legendary monster before. Lee can't understand what's going on. She wanted this so badly that she had those items sold at the end of the auction. Sadly, she feels like a fool. Lee thinks she should have been more honest with her friend. Koi Kun-sung suddenly appears and congratulates her. He says he's heading out. Lee seems thoughtful and asks if he learned the skill. Koi Kun-sung says yes successfully. She then wishes him a safe trip home. Our hero senses something is off. Suddenly, she apologizes for the order of the auction items. She explains that the government wants to monopolize all the primary achievements for her, so Lee changed the item order. That's why his book was last. Everything lines up, and Troy Hunson finds it plausible. She was the one who wanted that title. Besides, the government was backing everything. Troy Hunson says it's okay. He says all her reasons are understandable. Lee gets a little embarrassed. The protagonist decides to leave. In the end, she feels like he didn't want anything from her, so she promises herself that she'll never act that way again. Koi Han-sung knows his friend is very honest. Lee could have stayed silent, and nothing would have changed. But Nami feels bad for being the one who ended up with all the achievements. Protagonist opens his space. Then he takes out the golden book. He's ready to learn from it, but he hopes his skills will evolve. In the end, one power doesn't absorb, the other diffuses with it. Later, he'll receive the title of the first to learn, a legendary rank skill. Choi Han-sung believes joining the expedition was the best decision, just from the titles he earned. 450 points. And a crazy new skill he's eager to test out. A black mass of energy covers the battlefield. The monsters are obliterated, and the ones left charge in. Kurikan-san raises his hand, then uses his new skill. Nothing is left around him. Truth be told, it was much faster than he expected. The creatures flee in vain. They're all wiped out. Hoi Han-sun wants to find a bat-type dungeon. He starts thinking there might be a decent spot nearby. His leader sends him a message, asking him to return. He wonders if something happened when the protagonist calls. She says he probably just came out of dungeon. Lily wants to know if he has any intention of hunting in the northern area. The leader explains that there are very few people in that region for the lower level zones. She wants to know if he can help. The payment is double that of the emergency team, but he knows no one wants to take that job because players usually don't level up by hunting easy monsters. Choi Kun-sung agrees to help willingly. Lee is genuinely thankful and says she'll send a helicopter to pick him up. The protagonist realizes the situation must be quite urgent. She explains that there are many new dungeons in that area. It's not yet at the level of requiring an emergency alert, but if it continues, it will be. Shori Hamasaki promises to do his best. 2 weeks later, in North Korea, the protagonist receives a notification that he's reached the 3 million mark, and the mercenary system has been unlocked. Jolly. Kansang has no idea what the message is talking about. While he's reading it, he senses an incoming attack, so he uses the black lightning. In the end, only dust remains of the creatures. Apparently, nothing changed in his status. Jolly. Kim-sum opens a window where he can hire mercenaries. Their ranks start heroic and go downward. These are the ones available to him at the moment. He picks one to check out a tank full of cool abilities, but the guy costs 600 billion and is only available for 2 hours. Then he looks at the rare ranked ones. But those guys are pretty expensive too. Choi Han-sung finds a woman to tank, the cheapest at that level. But the description says she's a coward. Our hero doesn't know what to make of those comments. Maybe it's because she cancels a lot of contracts. He decides to hire her out of curiosity. The mercenary Lucia is contracted for 180 minutes. When she arrives, the first thing she does is thank him for choosing her. Then she asks where the enemy is. Choi Kan-sung says there aren't any at the moment. Lucia is curious why she was summoned, and he replies that he wants to ask some questions. The mercenary assumes it's his first time. Choi Kun-sun admits he just unlocked the option. Lucia promises to answer everything she can. She sets her gear aside on the ground. Choi Kun-sun wants to know what mercenaries actually are. She says they're all players just like him. Lucia tries to be more precise. They're all players with the same unique ability. All of them can buy and sell. He asks if portals appeared in her world, and why that happened. Lucia says yes, but she doesn't know the reasons. If the protagonist wants to know more, he'll have to hire a mercenary, rank legendary or higher. Most likely no heroic level mercenary knows the answer. Choi Kan-sung explains that in his world, the portals appeared 20 years ago. Despite the second cataclysm, things are pretty stable. He wants to know when the next one will happen. Lucia says as far as she knows, T2 is the end. Maybe there won't be another for 20 years. But she can't guarantee that. Choi Han-sun wants to know why she says that. The mercenary says that 40 years after the first cataclysm, her world was destroyed by monsters. Lucia says she knows. Her description says she's a coward and always runs from fights. Our hero wants to know why that is. She says she's a coward because she ran from her own world. In her old world, people lived in peace. One day, a portal opened right in the middle of the capital. Many orcs came pouring out. People could only grab their things and flee. Lucia, on the other hand, saw a white horse charging at the monsters, even a giant demon. She faced it, but the creature was really strong. That was the moment she awakened. It was when she became a level 1 player. She says she first tried to max out her attributes, using accumulated points, and evolved her skills. But she ended up regretting that. Later she earned points by hunting and selling items, and magic stones. She held on like that for 16 years, and because of that, she reached hope. But then the second cataclysm came. Lucia couldn't stop the legendary monsters that came one after another. She was fighting alone against something far stronger. A force field spread, making it impossible to use spatial mobility, items, or skills. With no choice, she uses her last resort to escape. Lucia tries to escape from the monster. She grabs the dimensional teleportation item. The former paladin had a high chance of getting lost in another dimension, but it was unavoidable. With no choice, she activates the item. At first, she failed to reach a dimension. Lucia got lost in the void, in the space between dimensions, a place where nothing exists. Fortunately, there was the mercenary system, where she could register. Lucia explains that there's a window in the system that says the same thing. Choi Hansen checks it out. The protagonist's rank is rare, and he's worth quite a bit. Lucia says she registered and waited, but almost no one hired her. Once she tried to lower the rate for another player. She only wanted to live in his world in exchange, but she was rejected. That's because the minimum rate is 1 million per hour. For a day, it has 24 million. In a month, it's about 700. Lucia says one day a player offered a new condition. He wanted her to send him 24 million points a day. Choi Kun-sung is shocked by this. The mercenary says yes, as long as they have the same ability. Lucia then offers a handshake. Choi Han-sun accepts, a bit confused. That's when he sees how many points she has to exchange. The protagonist finds it pretty interesting. Choi Kan-sung wants to know if it's possible to increase the accumulated points by exchanging with each other, but she says no. When a trade happens, the amount is reduced equally for both sides. The protagonist assumes she must have accepted the other player's offer, but she says she rejected it. Lucia explains that the system takes a 20% fee from every transaction. Choi Hun-sam remembers that it's true. She says that over time things got worse. That's when that same person hired her again. The protagonist assumes. That's when she finally accepted the offer. Yes, that's what she did. She hunted monsters to pay off the 24 million her buyers spent on her, even if she fought all day. In the end, she always ended up 4 million in the red, but she had no choice. Fortunately, she managed to save a bit of time and sleep while hunting, even if she could only save about 5 million points per day. But her employer's greed got worse, and she had to break the contract. After that, she went without being hired again until now. She says she couldn't take even 3 more months. So she wants to ask for something. Her minimum rate is 24 million, and she promises to send it every day. Lucia swears she'll fight on any battlefield. All she wants is permission to live in his world. The protagonist asks for some time to think. She says okay, but she doesn't have much time left. Lucia disappears again. Choi Kan-zang is alone in the cave once more. He's feeling like the luckiest guy in the world. Right now, the protagonist doesn't know what to do at the moment. He then opens the system, summoning Lucia back. The mercenary assumes he made a good decision. But before anything else, he wants to ask her something. She knows he's curious about her abilities, so she wants to show him her status window. Lucia says she'll display her level and stats. The protagonist is curious to see her capabilities. As he approaches, she activates her status window, and she's actually pretty strong. Her total stats are above 3 million, giving her approximately level 700. At the moment, Lucia is slightly stronger than him, but Choi Hun-san knows that soon he'll surpass her. Surely she has many rare and heroic rank skills. There must be many powerful monsters out there for incredible people to be hiring mercenaries for help. Lucia wants to know if he's satisfied with what he saw. Choi Kan-sung says that for now. He wants to make a temporary contract. Basically, he'll summon her for dungeons. When the hunt ends, her contract ends. In other words, every time he goes hunting, she'll go with him. Lucia agrees. She says it's a good deal. Then she vanishes again. On another day, in another dungeon, Lucia uses an active skill, making the monsters target her. Then she casts a spell to defend herself. That's when a black explosion erupts. The protagonist thinks the situation is very convenient. Lucia was slicing through the creatures like they were nothing. She has a fighting style very different from his. Lucia activates the skill again. Choi Kan-sung thinks they have good synergy. Meanwhile, he keeps eliminating monsters in his own way. One of the beasts is cut clean in half. The battle is over for now. Choi Kan-sung says they've completed the mission for now. Lucia says she really enjoyed this hunting field. She explains that in other worlds, there are many difficulties, like too many players in the same area. In addition, the hunting fields had noble owners. Adventurers had to pay high fees to enter. This even raises a doubt in her mind. She starts to wonder if the protagonist is a monarch in this world. Choi Kan-sung says it's just his job to clean up this region. Lucia is happy to be useful. Our hero says he'll call her again. Then once more she vanishes before his eyes. 1 week later, Lucia says she's accumulating achievements at a very fast pace. She was earning 10 million points a day hunting. Now she's earning 3 times that, reaching 300 million per week. The protagonist is happy to see her like this. Lucia is very satisfied with her achievements. He, on either hand, is starting to feel bad for earning hundreds of millions a day through electronic gear. The mercenary comes over to him. Lucia would like to ask him a question. She noticed that he also knows how to fight in close combat. The mercenary wants to know if he plans to keep mixing both fighting styles. The protagonist says yes, absolutely, that's his plan, but she says he's never truly learned real swordsmanship. He admits he only knows the basics. In that case, she recommends he hire a swordmaster and truly learn how to fight with a blade. Shuei Kansatsu asks why she says that. Lucia says he's too stiff, and he can't afford that kind of flaw, because against humanoid monsters, ranked heroic and above his attack,